Many of the Mongolian warriors have seen Jinlun Fawang display his abilities. His skill could hold back 10,000 men, and his strength exceeded that of 9 bulls. Though Xiao Longnu was the enemy, they saw that she was childlike, frail, and beautiful. Even if she did no witchcraft, she may not be able to defend against the mysterious divine abilities of Jinlun Fawang. They couldn't stop themselves from secretly hoping that Fawang would not be too ruthless. After Yang Guo finished reciting the mantra, he whispered to Xiao Longnu, "Gu Gu, be careful of that monk." When Jinlun Fawang heard that Yang Guo had not recited one word wrong, he had respect for him. He praised him. "Young man, only you." Yang Guo said, "Monk, only you." Jinlun Fawang looked at him and said, "Only I what?" Yang Guo said, "Only you've got the courage to fight with my master. She is the reincarnation of the goddess of mercy. She has the ability to move heaven and earth, the power to subdue dragons and tigers. You better take care." He saw that this monk was very powerful. He wanted to make him worry so he won't fight with his full abilities. Then it would be easier for his master to defend against him. But Jinlun Fawang is a hero that Tibet had never seen before. He excelled in both martial arts and the arts. How would he fall into the trap? He called out, "The first stance is coming, little miss. Show your weapon." Yang Guo took off the golden silk gloves and put them on his master before stepping back. Xiao Longnu took out a white silk belt from her pockets. The belt flew out and met the wind. A golden sphere was tied to the white belt. Something was inside the golden sphere. As the belt moved, the sphere rang like a bell, ding-ling, ding-ling. It was crisp and clear. The golden wheel that Jinlun Fawang uses traps the opponent's weapon, no matter if it's a saber, sword, spear, lance, pike, whip, or stick. When the weapon meets the wheel, they would be tangled up. When a normal person sends a stance over, the weapon in their hand will be lost. If he didn't see how impressive Yang Guo's martial arts were, he would never have said 10 stances. In his life, very few people have managed to take 3 stances of his golden wheel. Xiao Longnu's belt flew out. She was attacking first. Jinlun Fawang said, "What is this?" He sent out his left hand to grab the belt. He saw that the silk belt moving gently and swiftly. He knew that there would be many variations. That grab he sent out covered all directions, up, down, left, right, and middle. Wherever the belt goes, it would not escape his clutches. He couldn't have known that the golden sphere would counterattack, ringing as it moved. It was heading for his central eyelet pressure point on the back of his hand. Jinlun Fawang was extremely swift in changing his stance. His palm turned around and went for the sphere again. Xiao Longnu's wrist moved slightly. The sphere turned around, moving up and down, aiming to strike his arm's combined valley pressure point. Jinlun Fawang's palm turned again. This time he stretched out his 2 fingers to catch the sphere. Xiao Longnu understood what he was doing. The belt rushed forward slightly. The sphere went for the crooked marsh pressure point around the elbow area. Those few variations were done within just the turn of a hand. Jinlun Fawang turned his palm twice. Xiao Longnu twisted her wrist 3 times. The two had exchanged 5 stances. Yang Guo understood what was happening and loudly counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 stances. There are 5 stances left. Jinlun Fawang wanted Xiao Longnu to take 10 of his stances, wanting her to defend against 10 of his attacks. Yang Guo tried to be clever and counted the stances exchanged by both sides. Jinlun Fawang is a leading master of martial arts. Why would he allow himself to get into an argument over numbers with this crafty young man? His left arm went to the side and avoided the sphere, and then sent his golden wheel forward. Xiao Longnu heard the urgent lang-lang noise and saw a gold flash in front of her eyes. The enemy's golden wheel was now only a foot or so in front of her. This move was sudden. She couldn't even think about repelling this move. Evading this attack was impossible. In this danger, she flicked her wrist again. The silk belt went straight forward. The sphere attacked Fawang's wind pond pressure point on the front of his head. This is a fatal pressure point. Even if your martial arts were higher, once this point has been struck, your life would be at risk. She had no other choice but to use this risky stance of making both sides suffer great losses and to force the opponent to take back his wheel. Indeed, Jinlun Fawang did not want to risk his life with her. He lowered his head to avoid the attack, but once his head was lowered, the wheel in his hand became slower. Xiao Longnu took this opportunity and summoned back her silk belt, and a ding-ding-dang-dang sound was heard as the sphere collided with the golden wheel, neutralizing Jinlun Fawang's attack. All that happened in the blink of an eye. Xiao Longnu went from facing death to staying alive in a matter of seconds. She urgently utilized her lightness kung fu and retreated to the side. Her face had a fearful expression. Jinlun Fawang had just used one stance to attack, but Yang Guo called out loudly, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great, my master has received 10 stances of yours, what more have you got to say? After that exchange, Jinlun Fawang knew that although Xiao Longnu's martial arts were high, it was nowhere near his level. If they exchanged moves properly, he would definitely defeat her within 10 stances. He did not like Yang Guo stirring the situation from the side, talking rubbish and disturbing his concentration. He thought, I'll ignore the young man's rubbish, I'll intensify my attacks and beat the little girl first and then reason with them. His sleeve carried forward and the golden wheel flashed. It was another extremely lethal fatal attack. Yang Guo called out loudly, you don't want face. 10 moves have passed and you're continuing 11, 12, 13, and 14. He didn't care how many stances were exchanged in defense and attack by the two, his mouth kept on counting up. After receiving one of his stances, Xiao Longnu was extremely afraid. She didn't dare to receive another attack head-on. She utilized her lightness kung fu and flew around the hall, the belt in her hand floating in the air, the golden sphere quickly turning, forming a streak of fog, a path of yellow light. The sounds that the golden sphere was producing sped up suddenly, slowed suddenly, lightened suddenly, and loud suddenly. It was like a song. When she lived in the tomb, she studied the zither manuscripts left by Lin Kaying and played the zither accordingly. She became rather wonderful with it. Later on, she started to practice with the silk belt and gold sphere. She noticed that the tones made by the sphere possessed a rhythm and tone. Her character was still childlike then, and she managed to integrate music into this set of kung fu techniques. Everything possesses a rhythm, from the way the world passes on, how trees and grass grow, to a person's heartbeat and pulse. Music is created by the natural manipulation of the sounds of nature by people. Music pleases the ear, whereas noise creates trouble in the heart. When kung fu and music is combined, it is performed even more smoothly and softly, the body following whatever the mind wants. The lightness kung fu of the ancient tomb sect belongs to its own class. Other sects' lightness kung fu cannot compare with it. When using it in the open plains, it is difficult to identify the strong points of the technique. Right now, it was being used in the hall. The grace and ease of it was unparalleled, moving in thousands of different directions. She has practiced her martial arts in the rooms of the ancient tomb, within a radius of over 10 feet. She really did move like a goddess. Though Jinlun Fawang's martial arts were much superior to hers, as she hurriedly leaped and suddenly shifted, there wasn't anything he could do about it. He heard the ding-ling sounds of the sphere was like a song. After listening to it a while, he found himself fighting along with the music. He quickly swung his golden wheel to create a noise, mixing up the ling sounds. In a flash, the room was filled with the clashing of the two sounds. Suddenly it was soft, then loud, high, then low. The sounds from the bell was crisp and clear. When one hears them, they felt carefree and joyous. The sounds that Jinlun Fawang produced were like metal being forged, like a scraping of a cauldron, like killing a pig, beating a dog, many indescribable noises. Gu Jing and Huang Rong were watching from the side, and remembered how years ago they heard Hong Qigong. Ouyang Feng and Huang Yaoshi used the sounds of music to battle with each other on Peach Blossom Island. As they reminisced about it, it felt like it was lifetime ago. Though the martial arts of the two were masterly, when it comes to using music to fight, they could not compare with Hong, Huang, and Ouyang. Yang Guo had already counted up to 1005, 1006, 1007. But Xiao Longnu had kept away from facing her opponent. Jinlun Fawang had yet to use 10 stances. Guo Fu was unconscious in her mother's arms, but she was awakened by the sounds of the golden wheel. She raised her head, her face as dazed, and she did not know what was going on. Jinlun Fawang felt very impatient. He felt that with the status of a leading martial artist, if he was unable to beat this young girl after so long, and if the battle went on, he would eventually win, but he would have lost all face. He suddenly stretched out his left arm, the golden wheel slanted across. His left palm pushed out low towards the left, the golden wheel went upwards towards the right. The two of them had fought for a long time. Now Jinlun Fawang had grasped half of Xiao Longnu's lightness kung fu. Those two attacks were meant to block her escape routes. Only allowing her to move forward, escaping backwards was not an option. In this danger, Xiao Longnu waved her silk belt and wrapped it around a group of white flowers. Her body quickly flew up. Fawang's golden wheel turned around, binding the silk belt. If it were a normal weapon, he would have taken it away long ago. But the silk belt did not have any stiffness. It just lightly slipped away from the hole of the golden wheel. Jinlun Fawang shouted, "That is the second stance, the third stance is coming." He took a step forward. The golden wheel suddenly escaped from his hands and was sent flying towards Xiao Longnu. No one predicted that stance. The golden wheel spun urgently as it slashed towards Xiao Longnu. Xiao Longnu was extremely startled. She lowered her body and darted backwards. She suddenly heard a kai-kai sound. A yellow light passed her face within an inch. The gusts of wind created by the wheel hurt her tender face. In the startled calls of the crowd, Fawang dashed forward and stretched out his arm. His palm gave a push on the wheel's rim, turning it in midair, heading towards Xiao Longnu again. Xiao Longnu saw that the force the wheel was spinning with was extraordinary. How could she dare to use the silk belt to trap it? She could only use her matchless lightness kung fu to jump to the side to avoid it. Jinlun Fawang had missed twice and called out, "Great lightness kung fu!" He dashed forwards and stretched out his left fist. A dang sound was heard as he struck the wheel. At the same time, he sent out both palms, blocking Xiao Longnu's path forward, while the golden wheel flew with a lang-lang sound towards the back of her head. The golden wheel wasn't extremely quick, but before the wheel arrived, the gusts of wind created by the wheel moved towards Xiao Longnu. It was an extremely ferocious force. When Fawang punched the wheel, he had already calculated where the opponent could escape to. That is why the wheel seemed to have grown an eye. After making half a circle in midair, the wheel returned and headed for Xiao Longnu's back. Xiao Longnu jumped and used all the skills that she had learnt in her life, but she still saw the Tibetan monk's palms opened in front of her, blocking her way. The hero's ears were filled with calls, their eyes were dazzled, and all of them had fear in their hearts. Xiao Longnu glanced over and saw that the wheel was on the floor. The threat from behind was taken away, but her body was in midair. How could she avoid the enemy that was in front of her? She urgently waved out her silk belt, wrapping it around the pillar in the west, and then pulled with all her strength. Her body used this force to fly away towards the pillar. She smoothly and lightly slipped down behind the pillar. In the space of a hair's breadth, she managed to avoid Fawang's mountain-shattering palm. Jinlun Fawang had victory in his grasp, but was again stopped by Yang Guo. Not only did the enemy get away, even his unbeatable weapon was knocked onto the floor by him. He has never experienced such a frustrating setback in his life. He originally was meticulous, wise, and intelligent, yet right now he couldn't stop himself from reacting without thinking. He didn't wait for Yang Guo to get up and sent a palm chopping down on him. According to his status as head of a school, what he was doing did not match how he had always thought of himself. Yang Guo was a junior, and he was on the floor when he sent out this palm, but in his great anger he couldn't care less. Guo Jing saw him staring angrily at Yang Guo. His shoulder was raised and arm taken back. Guo Jing knew that he was about to kill him. He called out in quietly, "Oh no." If he took a step forward, he would still be able to block this attack, but Yang Guo would still suffer a serious injury. In this urgent situation, there was no time to think carefully. He used a stance of flying dragon in the sky. His whole body leapt into the air and attacked Jinlun Fawang's head. If Jinlun Fawang didn't take back this palm, though he would be able to kill Yang Guo, his life would be taken away under the matchless lethal and swift dragon-subduing palm. The force of his palm quickly turned around. He gave a high shout and exchanged palms with Guo Jing. This was the second time that two great masters of the present time exchanged palms. Guo Jing was in midair and had nothing to brace against. He used the opponent's force and made a half somersault, landing backwards. Yet Jinlun Fawang stood his ground steadily. His body didn't sway and his legs didn't shift. It was as if nothing had happened. Hao Datung, Sun Bar, Diankang Yuyan, and the others knew about Guo Jing's kung fu. After they saw this, they all were shocked. That monk's kung fu really is extraordinary. In reality, Guo Jing was just following the orthodox rules of martial arts by retreating backwards, naturally dispersing the enemy's force. After Yang Guo had interfered many times, Jinlun Fawang had lost face. He wanted to regain it back and so took Guo Jing's palm. He actually consumed a lot of his kai and internal energy. Though he looked like he was superior, he was suffering on the inside. The two of them are outstanding men of the world. It would be difficult to separate the two in tens of moves. Jinlun Fawang forced himself to take this stance without moving. His chest throbbed with pain again. Luckily, the aim of the opponent was just to stop him, and he did not continue to attack. He closed his lips and eyes and circulated his internal energy, unblocking the motionless Kai in his chest. Yang Guo escaped death and picked himself up. He hurried to Xiao Longnu's side, just as Xiao Longnu was about to come over and take a look at him. Both of them asked at the same time, "Are you okay?" The two nodded at the same time. A smile was on their faces. Their hands held each other's with joy in their hearts. Yang Guo picked up the golden rod and placed the golden wheel on top. He rotated the wheel and it made lang-lang noises. He loudly called out, "All you Mongolian warriors, listen. I've managed to take the weapon of your country's great protector. How can you still talk about being the chancellor of Wulin? Go and crawl back to Mongolia, you Mongolian asses." None of the Mongolian warriors accepted what had happened. They saw that Jinlun Fawang was about to win in the duel between him and Xiao Longnu. The opponents came up with not only Yang Guo, but Guo Jing as well. They all called out. It was Fawang who flung the wheel away himself. How could a little punk like you take it? 1 versus 1, and without the help of others. Correct, fight again. They all made a clamor, but it was all in Mongolian. Apart from Guo Jing, no one understood what they were saying. The heroes of the Central Plains were all reasonable and understanding people. They felt that when it comes to martial arts, Jinlun Fawang was indeed superior to Xiao Longnu. But they cannot allow a Mongolian to take the position of the Chancellor of Wulin. Otherwise, the Central Plains Wulin would have lost all its face. Before it actually began, the spirits of the amassed heroes who planned to defend against the foreign invaders had been dampened. The younger members of the crowd also began to argue and shout. When they heard the clamor of the Mongolian warriors, they began to quarrel with them. Both sides raised their weapons. The situation was developing into a mass brawl. Yang Guo raised the golden rod and golden wheel. He said to Jinlun Fawang, "You still won't admit defeat. You have lost your weapons. What face have you got left? How can the world have a Wulin chancellor whose weapon can be taken away by someone else?" Jinlun Fawang was secretly circulating his internal energy right now. He heard every single word that Yang Guo said, but he didn't dare to open his mouth and speak. Yang Guo looked at the situation and knew what was happening. Quickly, he loudly said, "All the heroes, please, can I have your attention? I'm going to ask him 3 times. If he doesn't reply, then that means he admits defeat." He was afraid that as time passes, Fawang will have finished circulating his internal energy. He didn't waste any time. He asked in one breath, "Did you or did you not lose? Are you still thinking about the position of the Chancellor of Wulin or not? If you don't say anything, then that means you admit defeat, right?" Fawang had just finished ridding the motionless Kai. The pain in his chest had cleared up. He was about to reply when Yang Guo saw his lips move. He quickly got in ahead and said, "Fine, since you've admitted defeat, we won't give you any trouble. You had better leave." He then raised the golden rod and golden wheel and handed them over to Guo Jing. He actually wanted to hand them over to his master, but was afraid that Jinlun Fawang's fury will erupt again. Xiao Longnu would not be able to block the attack. Guo Jing returned the gesture and bowed. He said, "Reverend's martial arts are deep and profound. I respect your abilities deeply. Please take back the weapons." As he said this, he offered the golden rod and wheel back. Yang Guo loudly called out, "Jinlun Fawang, you are thinking about taking them back. Do you want face?" Guo Jing shouted, "Guor, stop talking rubbish." Jinlun Fawang had already turned around with his sleeve floating behind. He didn't look back as he exited the hall. Yang Guo suddenly remembered something. He called out, "Hey, your disciple Hu Du has contracted my poison. Quickly bring the antidote to his poison and swap it with mine." Jinlun Fawang had always thought very highly of his own abilities. Mysterious and divine martial arts, profound medical knowledge, he can cure any poison. He had an extreme dislike for Yang Guo because of his slyness and craftiness. He ignored what he said and left. Huang Rong saw that Zhu Ziliu had his eyes closed and was asleep. She considered that many of the people here are experts in using poison projectiles. There would be someone who has the ability to cure this poison, and she wasn't too concerned with Jinlun Fawang's refusal. Now the Lu Manor was filled with thunderous cheers and calls. All of it was for Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu defeating Jinlun Fawang. Hundreds of people were around the two, one word here and another word there. Some said that Yang Guo defeated Hu Du in the way he deserved, dealing with a man as he deals with you. Others said that the speed and ease of Xiao Longnu's lightness kung fu was in a class of its own, actually managing to avoid the fierce and dangerous attacks of Jinlun Fawang. When it came to Yang Guo using the soul-altering spell to make Derba knock himself out, many of them did not understand what had happened. When someone asked about it, Yang Guo just made up a reply. The importance of ethical code. The banquet opened again at the Lu Manor. Wine and many dishes were once again prepared. Yang Guo had suffered a lifetime of wrongs, mistreatment, and being looked down upon, and today he had displayed himself well. He got rid of his anger. Everyone's eyes were opened as he achieved great merit for the Central Plains Wulin. He was extremely proud of himself. Xiao Longnu did not understand the ways of the world, though she didn't understand the reason for Yang Guo's delight. She too was extremely happy. Huang Rong liked her very much. She held her hand as she asked short and long questions, wanting Xiao Longnu to sit next to her. Xiao Longnu saw that Yang Guo was sitting in between Guo Jing and Diankang Yuyan, far away from her. She quickly motioned her hand and said, "Guo, sit next to me." But Yang Guo knew that girls and boys have their differences. At first, when he saw her, he forgot about this and showed his true feelings. Now in front of the glare of all these heroes, it would be improper to show this closeness again. When he heard her call out like this, he couldn't stop himself from blushing and smiled slightly, but he didn't go over. Xiao Longnu called out again. "Guo, why aren't you coming?" Yang Guo said. "I'm fine over here, Uncle Guo is talking to me." Xiao Longnu's elegant brows frowned and said, "I want you to sit next to me." When Yang Guo saw her angry expression, his heart shook. That slightly angry look made him feel if he were to die, he would die willingly. That day when he met Lu Wuxia, he used all his might to defend her against her enemies and protected her for thousands of miles because of the resemblance of her angry expression to Xiao Longnu's. Now the real person is here, how could he defy her? He immediately stood up and went over to her place. The way the two acted made Huang Rong slightly suspicious. She ordered another chair and asked Yang Guo, "Guo, who taught you kung fu?" Yang Guo pointed to Xiao Longnu and said, "She is my master. Auntie Guo, why don't you believe me?" Huang Rong knew that he was crafty and sly. She saw that Xiao Longnu was innocent and naive. She thought that she wouldn't lie, so she turned her head and asked her, "Sister, his kung fu was taught by you?" Xiao Longnu was very proud and said, "Yes. Tell me, did I teach him well?" Huang Rong now believed it and said, "Extremely well. Sister, who was your master?" Xiao Longnu said, "My master is dead." As she said this, her eyes went red. She was feeling rather sad. Her master had taught her to curb her emotions, but now her love for Yang Guo had surfaced. The emotions buried deeply within her heart also started to slowly show. Huang Rong asked, "What is your master's name?" Xiao Longnu shook her head and said, "I don't know, master is master." Huang Rong thought that she didn't want to say, refusing to mention the matters involving their sect's master was common within the Wulin community, so she didn't ask further. In reality, her master was just Lin Keiying's maid. She only had the name that Lin Keiying gave her, and even she herself did not know what her surname was. At this time, all the heroes gave a toast towards Guo Jing, Huang Rong, Yang Guo, and Xiao Longnu, celebrating the fact that they defeated such a strong opponent as Jinlun Fawang. Because Guo Fu was always by her parents' side, she had the respect of others. Right now she was being overshadowed, and she couldn't stop from feeling depressed. Apart from the Wu brothers by her side who revered her, no one took any notice of her. She felt annoyed. She said, "Big brother Wu, little brother Wu, let's go outside and play instead of drinking wine." Wu Dunru and Wu Ziyuan both agreed. The three of them stood up and were about to leave the hall when Guo Jing suddenly called out, "Fire, come over here." She turned her head and saw that her father had changed places and was now sitting at the same table as her mother, smiling and signaling her over, so she went and called out, "Father, mother," and leaned on Huang Rong. Guo Jing smiled and said to Huang Rong, "At first you were worried about Guo's character and were afraid that his martial arts weren't up to scratch. You can't say anything now, can you? He has achieved a great merit for the heroes of Wulin without saying that he hasn't done anything wrong. Even if he had, it cannot compare to what he has done today." Huang Rong nodded. She smiled and said, "It was my mistake. Guo's character and martial arts both are good. I am very pleased as well." Guo Jing heard that his wife had now agreed about their daughter's marriage and was delighted. He said to Xiao Longnu, "Miss Long, your disciple's father and I are sworn brothers. The Yangs and Guos have had a great relationship for generations. I have a daughter. Her beauty and martial arts are both passable." He had always been straightforward. Whatever is in his heart will be said. Huang Rong interrupted. She smiled and said, "Ayah who praises their own child like that, you're not afraid of making Sister Long laugh." Guo Jing laughed and followed on, "I wish to betroth my daughter to your disciple. Both his parents have passed away. The responsibility of making the decision is now passed on to Miss Long. I want to take the opportunity with all these heroes here to add another celebration on top of the last one. Let's ask two heroes of a venerable age and eminent virtue to be the matchmakers, and arrange the marriage. How about that? Marriage is decided by the orders of the parents and the words of the matchmakers. The boy and girl don't actually have a say. This is why, years ago, there was the matter of an arranged marriage decided by Guo Jing's father Guo Zaioshan and Yang Guo's grandfather Yang Taixin for their children. When Guo Jing said this, he laughed out loud and looked at Yang Guo and his daughter, thinking that Xiao Longnu will definitely agree to this. Guo Fu was already embarrassed. Her face was red, and she hid in her mother's arms. She felt this was inappropriate, but she didn't dare to say anything. Xiao Longnu's face changed slightly, and before she replied, Yang Guo stood up and gave a prolonged bow to Guo Jing and Huang Rong, and he said, "The gratitude that I have for Uncle Guo's and Auntie Guo's love and care would be impossible to repay. But nephew is from an ordinary family. My character is lowly. I am not worthy for your precious daughter." Guo Jing thought that because he and his wife are famous throughout the Wulin world, and his daughter's character, beauty, and kung fu are first class, now that he's personally saying that he wants to betroth her to him, he thought he would definitely be ecstatic. He couldn't have known that he would reject this. He couldn't help being startled. Then had another thought. It must be because he is young, it was unexpected, and he wanted to postpone it. Guo Jing gave a laugh and said, "Guo, the two of us aren't exactly strangers. This matter involves your future. There is no need to be embarrassed." Yang Guo gave another deep bow to him and said, "If Uncle Guo has any other requests, nephew here will oblige without delay. But I dare not comply with this request of marriage." Guo Jing saw that his face was serious and he was surprised. He looked at his wife in hope that she would explain it. Inside, Huang Rong blamed Guo Jing for being so straightforward. Without checking beforehand, he openly raised this matter in front of all these people, making a big mistake. She saw that the way Xiao Longnu and Yang Guo treated each other was like a couple in love. But they said they were master and disciple. Could it be that the two act in a manner contrary to the norm and have actually intermixed the relationships? This was something that was extremely hard to believe. She thought that although Yang Guo may not be a man of honor, he would not do such a thing as this. The song respect tradition above all. The relationship between master and disciple were like that of an emperor and his minister, a father and son. They can never intermix. Though Huang Rong suspected it, this matter was so serious that she didn't dare to believe it, so she asked Yang Guo, "Guo, Miss Long really is your master?" Yang Guo said, "Yes." Yang Guo said, "Yes." His mouth was replying to Huang Rong, but his eyes were fixed on Xiao Longnu, his face filled with joy, tenderness, love, and affection. Without mentioning how clever and wise Huang Rong was, even an ordinary person could tell that the two's relationship was not a normal master and disciple relationship. Guo Jing did not understand what Huang Rong was doing, thinking, "He has already said that Miss Long is his master. Their kung fu is from the same school. What's untrue about that? I was talking about our daughter's marriage. Why did Ronger ask them whether they were master and disciple again?" He first entered Quanjin sect and then entered another sect later on, though it's not according to the rules of Wulin. It's not that difficult a thing to clear up. Huang Rong was secretly alarmed at Yang Guo's and Xiao Longnu's expressions. She signaled with her eyes towards her husband and said, "Fire is still young. Why is there a need to rush things? Today the heroes of the world are amassed here. It's more important to discuss how to protect the country. Let's put aside our personal matters." Guo Jing thought this was correct, so he quickly said, "Yes, yes. I almost put my personal affairs over public matters. Miss Long will carry on discussing Guo's and my daughter's marriage at a later date." Xiao Longnu shook her head. "I myself will be Guo's wife," she said. "He cannot take your daughter as his wife." Those two sentences were crisp and clear. Hundreds of people in the hall heard this. Guo Jing was startled. He stood up and didn't believe his eyes. He saw her holding Yang Guo's hand, looking affectionate towards him. He had to believe it. He stuttered, He's your disc. Disc. Disciple, could it be that he's not?" Xiao Longnu had lived in the ancient tomb for a long time. She was not exposed to the sunlight. Because of this, there were no traces of color in her cheeks, and her was skin permanently white. But right now her heart was filled with joy and delight. Her face looked tender and enchanting, just like when a flower first blooms. She smiled and said, "Yes, I taught him kung fu, but now his kung fu is as strong as mine. He loves me in his heart and I love him. Before..." As she reached this point, she lowered her voice, though she was very innocent. The embarrassment and shyness of girls began to show. She said gently, "Before. I thought that he didn't love me. He didn't want me to be his wife, Mai." My heart was in unbearable pain, and I thought death would be better. But today, I know that he really loves me. Hundreds of people in the hall were silent, listening to her revealing her feelings. Even if a girl is filled with love, how could she tell it all in public? And how could she tell it to Guo Jing, who had nothing to do with it? But she does not know anything about customs, tradition, and the conduct of others. She just felt that these words needed to be said and immediately came out with them. Yang Guo was extremely moved by her words of love, but he looked at the crowd. Some were startled and surprised. Some looked awkward, and some did not approve. He thought that Xiao Longnu was too unknowing. She shouldn't have said this in this place. He pulled her hand and stood up. He softly said, "Gu Gu, let's leave." Xiao Longnu said, "Yes." The two of them headed towards the exit shoulder to shoulder, though the hall was filled with people. In Xiao Longnu's eyes, there was only Yang Guo. Guo Jing and Huang Rong looked at each other, startled. The couple had been through countless strange events, endured many dangers, but they could never have predicted what was happening right now. For the time being, they didn't know what to do. Xiao Longnu and Yang Guo were about to leave the hall when Huang Rong called out, "Miss Long, you're the Chancellor of Wulin. Everyone is under your command. You need to think this over." Xiao Longnu turned her head and showed a smile. She said, "I don't know how to be whatever Chancellor, sister. If you want it, then you take the position." Huang Rong said, "No, if you want to elect someone else, then you ought to elect Senior Chief Hong. The Chancellor of Wulin is the most revered position in the view of martial artists, but Xiao Longnu couldn't have cared less and just replied, "Just do whatever you want. I don't understand it anyway." She pulled Yang Guo's hand and headed for the exit again. Suddenly there was a gust of wind, the candlelight swayed, and a person darted out. The person was dressed in a Taoist gown, a long sword in his hand. It was the Quanjin Taoist Zhao Zhaijing. He blocked the exit with his sword and said loudly, "Yang Guo, you disobeyed your master and showed disrespect for Quanjin's founder, and today you have done such a monstrous thing. How can you still have the nerve to stand on this earth? As long as Zhao has one breath in him, I will not allow it." Yang Guo did not want to argue with this person in front of everyone. He deepened his voice and said, "Move." Zhao Zhaijing said, "Apprentice brother Zhen, come over. You have a say as well. That night on Mount Zhongnan, we saw with our eyes 2 people naked. What's all that about?" That night, Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu were practicing the Jade Heart Manual in the flower thicket when Zhao and Zhen saw them. Yang Guo had forced Zhao Zhaijing to take up a venomous oath. He couldn't tell this matter to a 5th person. How could he have known that today? Zhao Zhaijing would belittle and accuse them without restraint in front of everyone. Yang Guo was extremely furious. He shouted, "You swore an oath. You are forbidden to reveal this to a 5th person. Why are you now?" "Why?" Zhao Zhaijing laughed and said loudly, "Correct, I swore I won't reveal this to a 5th person, but in front of me there is a 6th, a 7th. It's not a 5th person when there's hundreds and thousands present. Naturally, I can tell everyone about this immoral thing that you two did." Zhao Zhaijing had seen the two naked, in the middle of the night in a flower thicket. How could he think that they were practicing advanced martial arts? It came out now due to anger, and he didn't care if he was falsely accusing them or not. That night, Xiao Longnu was so angry that she threw up a pool of blood, almost losing her life. Now she heard him twisting his words and arguing his way. She couldn't stand it any longer. She stretched out her hand and lightly grabbed his chest. She said, "You'd better stop talking rubbish." She had completed the Jade Heart Manual, and now the palm came out of nowhere. That, plus the fact that the Jade Heart Manual is the Black Star, the matching opposite of Quanjin's Kung Fu, made the move extraordinary. Xiao Longnu's hand had went through Zhao Zhaijing's urgent attempt to repel it, grabbing his chest. Zhao Zhaijing blocked thin air and was startled, but the opponent's palm just touched his chest briefly and then immediately departed. He didn't feel anything and didn't take it to heart. He chuckled and said, "Why are you touching me?" "I'm not." Before he finished, his eyes suddenly went blank. A pang sound was heard as he fell onto the ground. He had suffered a severe injury. When Sun Bu'er and Hao Datung saw their martial nephew hurt, they dashed forward to see his kai and blood had been forced upwards. His face was completely red as if he was drunk. Sun Bu'er chuckled and said, "Fine, your ancient tomb sect really wants to start something with my Quanjin sect." She held out a long sword, about to start a fight with Xiao Longnu. Guo Jing urgently got out of his seat and stood between the two. He said, "We're on the same side, stop this fighting." He said to Yang Guo, "Guo, both sides are your master and elders. Advise them to return to their seats, and then we can quietly clear things up." Xiao Longnu had never thought that such a thing as not keeping to your word and breaking a promise existed. She was really troubled. She pulled Yang Guo's hand with a frown, saying, "Guo, let's leave. We won't see these people ever again." Yang Guo followed her lead and took 2 steps forward. Sun Bu's sword moved and she shouted, "You've hurt someone and now you want to leave." Guo Jing saw that both sides were about to fight. He said seriously, "Guo, you must stop your feet. You must be a good person. Don't destroy yourself and your name. I was the one who named you. Do you know what the word Guo means?" When Yang Guo heard this, his heart trembled. He suddenly remembered all the events from when he was a child, thinking about all the sad and painful events he's been through, and then he thought, how come it was Uncle Guo who named me? Guo Jing loved Yang Guo very much. It was unavoidable that he would want to plead and scold him deeply and severely. Today he saw Yang Guo show himself in front of all these heroes. He was feeling delight and content when he suddenly found out that Yang Guo had done something he should never have done. His heart was anxious and urgent. His tone was especially strict. He continued, "Your deceased mother must have told you this before. Your name is Guo. What are the words that accompanies it?" Yang Guo remembered that his mother had told him this before. But then he was young. No one had used these words in regards him. He himself almost forgot it. Yang Guo replied, "They're Gai Zhai." Guo Jing said with a severe tone, "Correct, and what does it mean?" Yang Guo thought for a while and remembered the literature that Huang Rong had taught him when he was younger. He said, "Uncle Guo is saying that if I have made mistakes, then I must correct them." Guo Jing's tone now became gentler. He said, "Guo, people make mistakes. Mistakes can be changed. This is the greatest advice. They are the words of the first virtuous men and sages. You've been disrespectful towards your seniors. This is a big mistake. Think well about it." Yang Guo said, "If I was wrong, of course I would change. But he pointed to Zhao Zhaijing and said, he beat me, insulted me, lied to me, and hated me. How can he still be my master? Gu Gu and I are clean and innocent. The day can be our witness. I respect her and love her. Could it be that's wrong?" He said this boldly, with justice on his side. Guo Jing's intelligence and verbal ability couldn't compare with his. How could he argue with him? But he knew that his actions were very wrong, yet he didn't know how to tell him clearly. He could only say, this, you're wrong." Huang Rong walked forward slowly and softly said, "Guo, Uncle Guo is looking out for your well-being. You must understand this." Yang Guo was moved by her soft and gentle words. He lowered his voice and said, "I know that Uncle Guo has always treated me extremely well." His eyes became red. He almost cried. Huang Rong said, "He's giving you sincere advice. Don't take this the wrong way." Yang Guo said, "I don't understand. What exactly have I done wrong?" Huang Rong's face sank and said, "You really don't understand. Or are you deliberately stirring things up?" Yang Guo was angry in his heart. He thought, "You have treated me well. I have paid you back well. What more do you want from me?" He bit down on his lips and didn't reply. Huang Rong said, "Fine. Since you want me to tell you the truth, I won't go around in circles. Since Miss Long is your master, she is your senior. You cannot be lovers." This rule was not unheard of by Yang Guo as it was by Xiao Longnu, but he couldn't accept it. Why couldn't Gu Gu be his wife just because she taught him some kung fu? Why even Uncle Guo doesn't believe that he and Gu Gu have done anything immoral? When he thought about this, his anger erupted. He was already someone who wasn't afraid of neither heaven nor earth. Now that he's being accused, he was even bolder and loudly said, "What have I done that has hindered you people? Who have I hurt? Gu Gu has taught me kung fu, but I still want her to be my wife. Even if you chop me up into 1,000 pieces, I will still want her to be my wife." These words shocked and startled those who heard it. The song at that time adhered to customs and traditions strictly. Where on earth have they heard such fearless, wanton, and rebellious logic? The person that Guo Jing respected the most was his master. When he heard this, his anger erupted and he dashed forward, stretching out his arm, grabbing his chest. Xiao Longnu was shocked and stretched out her hand to block this grab. Guo Jing's martial arts were much stronger than Xiao Longnu's, and now he was furious. He used all his strength, a lead and a wave, and he had flung her over 10 feet away. He stretched out his arm and grabbed Yang Guo's celestial charge pressure point. With his left hand raised, he shouted, "You animal, you dare to say such heresy?" Yang Guo's lost all his strength by this grab, but there wasn't a shred of fear in his heart. He said, "Gu Gu loves me with all her heart. I treat her the same way. Uncle Guo, if you want to kill me, then do it, but I will never change my mind." Guo Jing said, "I treat you like my own son. I cannot allow you to do wrong and not change." Yang Guo said proudly and boldly, "I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't done anything bad. I haven't harmed anyone." Those words were like the sounds of metal clanging. Everyone's heart shook when they heard this. His words really did have some reason in them. If a master and disciple didn't say anything and they got married on some remote island or deserted location, then no one would know about it. It would not affect anyone. But publicly announcing such a wrong really contradicts the mentality of the people of this time and means becoming the scum of Wulin. When Yang Guo heard him say this, he knew that if he didn't change what he said, Uncle Guo would kill him with one palm. Though he was crafty and sly at times, at this point nothing could compare with his stubbornness. He said clearly, "I know I haven't done anything wrong. If you don't believe it, then kill me." Guo Jing raised his palm. What chance has he of living if the palm landed on his head? Everyone watched without making a sound. Hundreds of eyes stared at his palm. Guo Jing's palm stopped in midair for a second, and he looked at Yang Guo again. He was biting down on his lips, his brows wrinkled. What Guo Jing saw was the picture of his father, Yang Kang, from years ago. His heart ached, and he let out a long sigh. He loosened his right hand and said, "Think well about what you're doing." He turned around and went back to his place. He didn't take another glance at Yang Guo. His face was full of hurt and grief. He was extremely disheartened. Xiao Longnu signaled to him with her hand and said, "Guo, these people are extremely unreasonable. Let's go." She didn't know that just now, Yang Guo's life was hanging by a thread. Yang Guo thought that the word unreasonable was extremely apt. He stepped towards the exit, holding Xiao Longnu's hand as they went out. Outside the manor, they lead the skinny horse along as they made their way. Everyone watched their backs as they left. A few were shocked, others despised them, some were regretful, and a number of them were angry. Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu walked shoulder to shoulder. It was deep into the night now. The two of them had finally reunited with each other. All the things that had happened today, the heated battle, the arguments, they were all clearly forgotten. They felt as though they were in heaven right now. All those wasted days they had lived apart before were in vain. Now there was no need to worry about the days that were to come. The two of them were linked to each other by thought. They didn't exchange a word as they walked on silently. The two arrived at a willow tree and sat down by the tree trunk. They gradually grew tired and fell asleep. The skinny horse was grazing on grass far away, making quiet neighing noises. The sky was bright when they woke up. The two looked at each other and smiled. Yang Guo said, "Gugu, where are we going?" Xiao Longnu pondered for a while and said, "Let's go back to the tomb." Ever since she'd left the tomb, she felt that, although outside was bustling and flourishing, it wasn't as carefree and comfortable as the tomb. Yang Guo was deep in thought. If I could spend the rest of my life with Gugu in the tomb, I would have no other desires. Before, he longed for the outside world, hoping that she would let him leave the tomb, but after going outside, he too longed for the quiet life in the tomb. The two of them slowly started to head north. One still called the other Guor. The other one still called the other Gugu, and they both felt that being together and calling each other this way felt the most natural. By midday, the two started to talk about Jinlun Fawang's martial arts. They both said that his martial arts were excellent. It would be extremely hard to defend against it. Xiao Longnu suddenly said, "Guor, we haven't completed the final stage of the Jade Heart Manual. Can you remember it?" Yang Guo said, "I can remember it, but we spent a lot of time pondering about it and still were unable to succeed. It seems like there's something wrong somewhere." Xiao Longnu said, "Originally, I didn't understand it, but last night when the Taoist nun took her precious sword out, it allowed me to remember something." Yang Guo recalled the stance that Sun Boer used last night and immediately understood. He called out, "Ah, yes, yes. It requires the kung fu of the ancient tomb to be used simultaneously with the kung fu of Quanjin. No wonder we've been going wrong." When Lin Kaying developed the Jade Heart Manual alone in the ancient tomb, she wanted to defeat the techniques of the Quanjin sect, but her love for Wang Qingyang still had not been extinguished. When she devised the final stage, she imagined that one day she would be fighting shoulder to shoulder with her lover. Because of this, the stage requires one person to use the techniques of the Jade Heart Manual, the other Quanjin martial arts, mutually aiding each other and attacking together. That day, Lin Kaying was filled with thoughts of love and affection. She was wrapped up in them. All those feelings were placed into this stage. The pair of swords being horizontal and vertical is not the main aim. The most important aspect lies in fighting the enemy together hand in hand. But it wasn't appropriate to mark this matter of the heart down clearly on the room's ceiling. When Xiao Longnu and Yang Guo first practiced, their love had yet to blossom. They had no way to understand what their ancestor grandma sought. When they studied, Both of them practiced the formulae of their own sect, so of course they could not grasp the intricacies within. Both of them now understood. They went and broke off a willow branch each and began to study the stances. Xiao Longnu slowly used the Jade Maiden Sword. Yang Guo used the sword techniques of Quanjin. After many stances, they felt that it was difficult to use them together harmoniously. The two of them did not envisage that when Lin Kaying developed this particular sword play, she was imagining herself fighting shoulder to shoulder with Wang Qingyang against an enemy. Every stance and move was designed to mutually protect the other. Right now, when Xiao Longnu and Yang Guo were studying it, they were treating each other as the enemy, thrusting and attacking each other. Killing the opposition was not what was intended. In reality, Lin Kaying and Wang Qingyang were the first-class fighters of the world at that time. There wasn't anyone that was a match for just one of them. This particular set of unity kung fu didn't have much use. It was just the unrestrained imagination of Lin Kaying showing her heart's feelings. When she developed this sword play, her martial arts had already reached their pinnacle. The stances, postures, and power were pressing, tight and continuous, not allowing a hair to be out of place. Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu did not understand the workings within, and so, of course, it would be difficult for them to achieve this final level. The two practiced for a while but still felt that something was wrong. Xiao Longnu said, "It could be that we've remembered it wrong. Let's go back to the tomb and clarify things, and then practice it again." Yang Guo was about to reply when suddenly the sounds of horse hoofs could be heard, and then a horse galloped past. The horse had red hair, the person on it was wearing purple, and they galloped past like the wind. It was Huang Rong who was riding on the little red horse. Yang Guo didn't want to be troubled by the Guo family, so he discussed with Xiao Longnu about changing paths, and followed a small path instead so they won't bump into them again. Xiao Longnu was the master, but aside from martial arts, she didn't understand anything else. She had no opinions. That night the two lodged in a small inn. Yang Guo slept on the bed. Xiao Longnu hung a rope across the room and slept on the rope. The two had decided to marry each other, but naturally they still followed the sleeping arrangements that they'd had in the tomb for years. After meeting again and practicing martial arts as they used to, when they thought about their loved one being by their side, both felt limitless delight. By midday the next day, the two arrived at a large town. People were everywhere, horses came, carts went. It was a great atmosphere. Yang Guo took Xiao Longnu to a restaurant for something to eat. As soon as they went upstairs, he was surprised as he saw Huang Rong and Wu brothers at a table eating. Yang Guo thought that since they've met, it wasn't inappropriate for him to pretend that he didn't see them, so he greeted them and called out, "Auntie Guo." Huang Rong frowned, her face looked anxious and worried. She asked, "Have you seen my daughter?" Before Huang Rong could reply, the stairs rattled and a group of people came up. The first person was tall and slender. It was Jinlun Fawang. Yang Guo quickly turned around and didn't carry on speaking with Huang Rong. He quietly went over to Xiao Longnu and whispered, "Turn your back, don't look at them." But Jinlun Fawang's eyes were very sharp. All the people upstairs entered his eyes. He gave a chuckle and sat down at a table. Yang Guo was about to turn his head around when suddenly Huang Rong called out, "Fire!" He couldn't stop himself from turning his head and saw Guo Fu sitting at the same table as Jinlun Fawang. Her eyes were staring at her mother, but she didn't dare go over. After Jinlun Fawang failed in his plan at the Lu Manor, he was angry and couldn't accept what had happened. He was trying to formulate a plan to turn defeat into victory. Also, Huo Du had fallen victim to the jade bee needles. The poison was showing its effects. He tried many methods to cure this poison, but none of them were effective. He had to find a way to get the antidote, and so they didn't go far and stayed in the area around the Lu Manor. It was Guo Fu who happened to meet danger. In the early morning, she took the red horse out for a ride, meeting this great enemy at this time. He took her off the horse in one swipe. The little red horse was quick-witted. It dashed back to the manor and hissed out in distress incessantly. Guo Jing and the others knew that Guo Fu had met with danger. They were alarmed and immediately went out to look for her separately. Though Huang Rong was pregnant, she still went and took the Wu brothers along to search for her. They saw Yang Guo and his master. They didn't guess that it was Jinlun Fawang who was detaining Guo Fu. And then they too arrived at this particular restaurant. When Huang Rong saw her daughter, she was happy but alarmed at seeing her in the hands of the enemy. After giving one call, she didn't say another word. Holding a pair of chopsticks in her hand and waving them about on the table and trying to come up with a plan to save her daughter. Just as she was pondering, Jinlun Fawang suddenly said, "Chief Huang, is this your lovely daughter? Yesterday I saw her in your arms, relaxing. It was really charming." Huang Rong gave a hang sound, not replying. Wu Ziyuan stood up and shouted, "And you're supposed to be a leader of martial artists. You lost in the duel, so you went to bully someone's young daughter. Aren't you ashamed?" Jinlun Fawang ignored his words and continued, "Chief Huang, when we dueled yesterday, we were clearly the winner, yet you people made up a lot of excuses and complications. That is not the action of good men. First give me the antidote, and then we'll set a date for a duel. We'll compete fairly and properly for the place of the Chancellor of Wulin." Huang Rong gave another heng sound, not saying a word. Wu Ziyuan said loudly, "First release Miss Guo. We'll deliver the antidote immediately, and there'll still be time to discuss the matter of dueling again later on." Huang Rong glanced over at Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu, thinking, "The antidote is on them, yet you hastily promised them the antidote without knowing whether or not they'll give it to us." Jinlun Fawang said, "Could it be that only you know how to use poisonous projectiles? You people used a poisonous needle to injure my disciple. I can also prick your daughter with a few poisonous needles. If you give me the antidote, then I'll cure her here. When it comes to releasing her, I'm afraid it won't be easy." Huang Rong saw that her daughter looked normal. It looks like she wasn't hurt, but the love between a mother and daughter is deep. She didn't know what to do. There's a saying, "Worry then panic." Though she was matchless in terms of coming up with ideas and plans, right now, she was at her wit's end. She saw the waiter bringing dishes and wine to Jinlun Fawang's table. Jinlun Fawang and the others ate heartily, talking and laughing. Guo Fu sat there frozen, just staring at her mother, not picking up her chopsticks. Huang Rong felt as if her heart was being cut open. She disturbed her internal kai and air, and suddenly her lower abdomen ached. After Jinlun Fawang finished eating and drinking, he stood up and said, "Chief Huang, follow us." Huang Rong was startled and understood. Not only is he going to take her daughter, but he wanted to take her away as well. Right now everything was in place. She only had the Wu brothers at her side, and they were not his match. She couldn't stop her face from completely changing. Jinlun Fawang continued, "Chief Huang, there's no need for you to be frightened. You are an eminent person of Wulin. We will treat you with respect. Once a decision has been made about the position of Chancellor of Wulin, we will immediately return you to the south." When he saw Huang Rong upstairs, he knew he had a great opportunity. All he had to do was capture her, and the martial artists of the Central Plains would have no choice but to submit. This was 100 times better than capturing Guo Fu. This really was the deal of a lifetime that had landed on his lap. Huang Rong was worrying about her daughter and didn't think about this possible situation. The Wu brothers saw that their master's wife was distressed. They knew they weren't a match, but they couldn't just sit there doing nothing. A pair of long swords was drawn out to protect their master's wife. Huang Rong whispered, "Quickly jump out of the window, then go and find your master for help." The Wu brothers glanced at her and glanced at Guo Fu, then hurried to the window. Huang Rong secretly cursed, "Idiot, how could you allow such a delay?" Indeed, just a little delay, and it was too late. Jinlun Fawang's long arms came sweeping out, each arm grabbing the back of a brother, like an eagle catching two little chicks. The Wu brothers urgently thrust their swords back, but Jinlun Fawang didn't move out of the way. His arms swung a little. Wu Dunru's sword was now heading towards his little brother. Wu Ziyuan's sword was heading towards his big brother. They were startled. They quickly stopped the thrusts and flung their swords away. A dang-lang sound was heard as the swords landed on the floor, with the Wu brothers avoiding injury. Jinlun Fawang's arms shook as he flung the two over 10 feet away and said, "Just be obedient and follow me." He turned his head towards Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu and said, "If you aren't with Chief Huang, then leave at your convenience, but don't hinder my plans again. Your kung fu is excellent. Take care and practice for another 10 or 20 years. By then, you won't have a match under heaven." He wasn't actually praising them. He knew that although Huang Rong, Yang Guo, and Xiao Longnu's martial arts could not compare to his, if they fought together it would be difficult to handle them. Although he'll win, he may not be able to capture Huang Rong. Because of this, he deliberately tried to divide them, concentrating on the trunk and ignoring the branches. He didn't know that Huang Rong was pregnant and inconvenienced. He calculated that her extremely ingenious dog-beating stick technique would make her a strong opponent. Xiao Longnu said, "Guor, let's leave. That old monk is really powerful. We can't beat him." All that she hoped for was to return to the ancient tomb and spend the rest of her life with Yang Guo. She did not care about the world's blood affairs. When she saw Jinlun Fawang, she was afraid and so immediately said what she was feeling. Yang Guo agreed. He stood up and went to the top of the stairs, thinking that, now that they're returning to the ancient tomb, most probably he won't ever see Huang Rong again. He couldn't stop himself from turning his head around and giving her another glance. He saw her face looked bleak, her left arm holding her lower abdomen, showing that she was secretly in pain. Yang Guo thought, Uncle and Auntie Guo were rather meddlesome in not allowing me and Gugu to be together, but they did not have any ill intentions. Today Auntie Guo's in trouble. How can I just leave like this? But the enemy is too strong. Me and Gugu fighting together won't be a match for that Tibetan monk. I can't save Auntie Guo, so why should I throw away mine and Gugu's lives? It would be better for me to go and tell Uncle Guo and let him lead the rescue. Yang Guo took Xiao Longnu's hand and moved his foot to walk down the stairs when he saw a Mongolian warrior going over to Huang Rong, coarsely saying, "Come quickly. Why are you delaying?" He stretched out his arm and grabbed her upper arm, treating her as a prisoner. Huang Rong had been the beggar clan's chief for over 10 years. Her position and status was respected by all in Wulin. Although she is in a distressing situation today, how could she allow herself to be disgraced by this ruffian? She saw a pair of hairy hands reaching out towards her and immediately swept her sleeve. The sleeve covered his wrist as she flung out, and a hoo sound was heard as the fat body of the Mongolian warrior flew out of the window, landing in the street, barely alive. Huang Rong didn't want her hand to touch his wrist, so she first covered his arm with her sleeve, and then separated the sleeve, throwing him away. At first, when they spoke politely, the people in the restaurant didn't take much notice of them. When they suddenly saw a fight had broken out, the restaurant was in chaos. Jinlun Fawang chuckled and said, "Indeed, Chief Huang has great kung fu." He copied the actions of the Mongolian warrior, stepping up to her and stretching out his hand to grab her arm. Huang Rong knew that he wanted to show off his martial arts. Though he was using the same method, she could never do the same thing to him. She could only take a step back. Yang Guo had taken a few steps down the stairs when he saw a struggle suddenly arising with Huang Rong about to suffer an insult. It stirred his heroic nature. He didn't care about the dangers to himself. He flew over and picked up the sword that Wu Dunru dropped. He used a stance of the green dragon exits the sea, urgently thrusting towards Jinlun Fawang's back. He shouted, "Chief Huang is carrying a child, and you're taking this opportunity to make your move, aren't you ashamed?" Jinlun Fawang heard the noise of a blade cutting through air behind him. He didn't turn around and turned his finger towards the dull side of the blade, striking it. A dang sound was heard. Yang Guo's arm trembled with numbness as the sword tip went downwards. Yang Guo quickly flew out of the way. Jinlun Fawang turned around and said, "Young man, leave quickly. You're young, yet your martial arts are not weak. In the future, you will be able to far exceed me. But you are not a match for me now. Why come forward to die by my hands?" Those sentences both praised and warned Yang Guo. Jinlun Fawang hated the two of them for knocking his golden wheel out of the air and interfering with this plans to take the position of the Chancellor of Wulin. Right now, he weighed up what was more important. Capturing Huang Rong was the #1 objective. He didn't want to be distracted by other people. He hoped that Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu would leave this dispute, and there'll still be time for him to vent his anger on the two juniors later on. He calls himself a hero of Tibet. Not only are his martial arts frightening, his scheming ability was rather good. Those words were neither haughty nor humble, yet were not deceiving either. Yang Guo was young, and when he heard that in the future his martial arts would be much better than Jinlun Fawang, he was secretly pleased. He laughed and said, "There's no need to be polite, big monk. It's not easy to reach a level as high as yours. Chief Huang raised me, so don't give her any trouble. If she didn't have an illness, your martial arts might not be able to defeat hers. If you don't believe it, why don't you wait until she recovers and then have a duel with her?" He knew that Jinlun Fawang thought very highly of his martial arts. Goading him like this might actually change his mind, and he'd let Huang Rong go. How would he know that Jinlun Fawang was worried about Huang Rong, Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu joining together to fight him? That was why he was polite towards Yang Guo. When he heard these words, he glanced at Huang Rong's face. Indeed, her face did look distressed. Her illness was not light. He thought, why should he be worried about the threat of Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu? He then gave a chuckle and went over to the stairs. He said, "You stay as well." Xiao Longnu stood on the stairs with Jinlun Fawang between her and Yang Guo. She didn't like this and said, "Get out of the way, monk, let him come down." Jinlun Fawang frowned. He sent a stance of opening the tablet with a single palm. His natural strength was already high, and attacking from above made this force even stronger. How could Xiao Longnu dare receive this stance head-on? She was waiting for Yang Guo at the top of the stairs. She didn't leap backwards. Her legs lightly lifted. She used her amazing lightness kung fu to pass the opponent's body to reach Yang Guo, standing shoulder to shoulder next to him. When she was passing Jinlun Fawang's side, he stuck out his elbow, but it missed. He was in awe of the swiftness and agility of her movements. Yang Guo picked up Wu Ziyuan's sword and passed it into her hand. He said, "Gu Gu, that monk is so rude, let's give him a beating." A Qiang Lang sound was heard as Jinlun Fawang took out a wheel from his gown. This wheel was the same size as his golden wheel, but was dark green and was made out of iron. This wheel also had the Tibetan scriptures marked on it. He has a total of 5 wheels: golden, silver, bronze, iron, and lead. When he met a strong enemy, he really could send out all 5 wheels at once, but he had always used the golden wheel only. With it, he had defeated countless strong enemies, and because of this, he received the nickname of Jinlun Fawang, King of the Golden Wheel or Golden Wheel Monk. He had never used the other 4 wheels before, so really, according to martial arts level he has reached, it should be Wu Lun Fawang, King of the 5 wheels or the 5-wheeled monk. In the Lu manner, his golden wheel was taken out of the air by Yang Guo using the golden rod. Now he took out his iron wheel and said, "Chief Huang, are you joining them as well?" Though he saw that Huang Rong's looked ill, he was still worried about her martial arts. He called her Chief Huang to remind her of her status as the chief of a clan. Joining up with others to fight one person would lower her. Yang Guo called out, "Chief Huang is going home now. She hasn't any time for you." He turned around to Huang Rong and said, "Auntie Guo, take Sister Fu and go." He had made his decision. Though he and Xiao Longnu would not be able to beat the enemy, they could force themselves to last a while. If it came to escaping, they would probably still be able to get away. Luckily, they weren't fighting for victory, but trying to escape from the devil's grasp. So what if they had to run away pathetically? He raised his sword and thrust towards Jinlun Fawang. Xiao Longnu saw that he was using the techniques of the Jade Heart Manual, so she followed and attacked from the side. She hadn't given any thought to it. When she saw Yang Guo attacking the monk, she too started to fight him to aid Yang Guo. Jinlun Fawang used his wheel to block the 2 swords, but he didn't like how cluttered the restaurant was. It hindered his movements. On one occasion, he was fighting using his wheel. On another, he kicked away the chairs and tables. Yang Guo was thinking, "If we meet you head-on, we'll definitely lose. Only by obstructing you will we last a little longer." He saw that Jinlun Fawang was kicking away the tables and chairs. He did the opposite and pushed the tables and chairs in between them. His and Xiao Longnu's lightness kung fu was superb. They darted around, not fighting the enemy properly. They would suddenly throw a jug of wine over, suddenly tip the dishes over, causing the restaurant to be covered in wine and juices from the dishes. Huang Rong took this opportunity to snatch Guo Fu back. After Derba fell under Yang Guo's soul-altering spell, he was out of it. Sometimes he would be awake, sometimes in a daze. Hu Du was seriously injured with the poison, and the rest of the Mongolian warriors weren't very skillful. How could they fend off Huang Rong? Yang Guo called out, "Auntie Guo, leave quickly." But Huang Rong saw that the stances of Jinlun Fawang were lethal. Even if Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu used all their strength, it would be difficult for them to defend against the attacks. As of now, they were able to fend him off by fighting like this. But once Jinlun Fawang finds a weakness and then makes his lethal move, how could their lives remain intact? Huang Rong thought, "He's risking his life for me. How can I look out for myself only and leave?" She stood at the entrance of the stairs, quietly watching the battle. But the Wu brothers kept on urging Huang Rong, "Master wife, let's go. You're not feeling well. You need to take care." At first, Huang Rong ignored them, but when they kept on pressing her, she said angrily, "What use is it to learn martial arts if you don't behave with heroic values? What use have you got living in this world? The one named Yang is 100 times better than you. You brothers better think well about this." The brothers felt embarrassed, their good intentions dismissed just like that by their master's wife. Guo Fu picked up the broken leg of a table off the floor and called out, "Brother Wu's, let's all fight him." Huang Rong held her back and said, "Going up there with your lowly kung fu, do you want to die?" Guo Fu pouted, not believing her mother. She saw that the stances that Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu weren't anything special. Sometimes their form looked masterly, but the sword stances weren't at all lethal. Every time Jinlun Fawang went to attack, The chairs and tables would impede him while Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu moved around vibrantly, flying here and suddenly darting there, fighting as they floated around. He had a thought. He suddenly used the force in his legs. Non-stop sounds of kala-kala were heard as the overturned tables and chairs were crushed and broken. He used the iron wheel in his hands to attack while his legs used the 1,000-kilogram fall. The chairs and tables all broke wherever his legs were. After a while, the upstairs of the restaurant became covered by a layer of broken wood. The three of them battled on the debris without any obstructions. Jinlun Fawang moved around in large steps, the iron wheel flashing around. Lang-lang sounds were heard, his arms in motion as he attacked the two ferociously. There were now fewer tables and chairs in the way, so Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu had to use real martial arts to defend against him. Jinlun Fawang did not give an inch. On the fourth stance, he smashed forward fiercely. A ferocious gust of wind rushed forward before the iron wheel even arrived. Xiao Longnu and Yang Guo both thrust forwards, the sword tips striking the wheel. They were able to block this wheel with their combined strength, but the swords were bent by the force. The two used all their strength to repel the wheel. Yang Guo then thrust forward, attacking the enemy's upper body. Xiao Longnu cut urgently across the enemy's left leg. Jinlun Fawang kicked out towards Xiao Longnu's wrist. The iron wheel swerved and attacked Yang Guo's neck. Yang Guo ducked and crouched to avoid the iron wheel. At that time, Jinlun Fawang suddenly let go with his right hand. The iron wheel dropped downwards towards Yang Guo's head. At the same time, Jinlun Fawang tried to grab Xiao Longnu's shoulders with his free hand. In just a flash of an eye, the two had fallen into great danger. Huang Rong gave an ah cry and was about to go forward to save them when she saw Yang Guo swerve and fly just above the floor. Before he touched down, the sword went towards Jinlun Fawang's back. That stance achieved two aims at once, attacking and defending at the same time, solving the crisis he was in. He used the idea of surrounding way to save Zhao and stopped Jinlun Fawang from attacking Xiao Longnu. This stance was called the wild goose attacks from the side, a technique from Quanjin's swordplay. Jinlun Fawang gave a yik call. Before the iron wheel fell on the floor, the back of his right leg knocked against the wheel, sending the wheel flying up with lang-lang noises, smashing towards Yang Guo's head. In the midst of danger, Yang Guo had used a stance of Quanjin's swordplay which was surprisingly effective, so he used another Quanjin stance. The white rainbow traveling across the sky, the flat side of the sword struck the wheel. The sword was light, the wheel heavy. That attack originally had no chance, but the strike was just at the right place, fulfilling the martial art theory of 4 liang moving 1,000 jin, and the iron wheel changed directions, flying towards Jinlun Fawang's head. Guo Fu clapped her hands as she watched with delight. Jinlun Fawang dared to release his weapon because he thought that his enemies had no way to receive the wheel. If the opponent used their weapon to strike out against the wheel, even if it was a heavy whip or saber, once it meets the wheel, the weapon will be knocked from the opponent's hand. He could not have predicted that Yang Guo had the ability to redirect the wheel. Jinlun Fawang was furious. He caught the wheel and secretly used his spin technique and sent the wheel flying out again. This time, his internal energy was more pressing. The wheel made no sounds because the iron wheel was spinning too fast, and the spheres in the wheel could not collide with each other. When Yang Guo struck the wheel for the first time, he used the techniques of the 9-yin manual unwittingly, this time when he stretched out his sword to strike the wheel. A dang noise was heard as the sword shook out of his hands. Jinlun Fawang immediately used the falling obelisk hand, heavily smashing towards him. Yang Guo wasn't completely familiar with the techniques of the 9-yin manual. This time the force he put behind his strike was incorrect. When Xiao Longnu saw Yang Guo was in danger, she twisted her trim waist and urgently thrust her sword forward. The force of this stance had an assured lethalness, the appearance attractive and extremely graceful. She was actually using the martial arts of the final stage of the Jade Heart Manual. Huang Rong and her daughter watched with joy and both called out, "Wonderful!" Jinlun Fawang took back his palm and leapt away. He used his wheel to fend off the sword. Yang Guo took this opportunity to recover his sword. Yang Guo really had escaped from the death's clutches just now, but when one is at death's door, they are especially alert. He suddenly had a thought. When Gu Gu and I both used the Jade Maiden swordplay, it was difficult for us to defend against him. But when I used the Quanjin swordplay and Gu Gu the Jade Maiden swordplay, we actually managed to turn danger into safety. Could it be that the final stage of the Jade Heart Manual is used this way? He immediately called out, "Goo goo, the traces of waves at heaven's cliffs." As he said this, he slanted his sword and thrust forward. Xiao Longnu didn't give it much thought and followed his instructions, and used the traces of waves at heaven's cliffs. As stated in the manual, she waved her sword and chopped forward. The names of the stances are the same, but they had a difference. One of them was a lethal sword stance from the Quanjin swordplay, the other a dangerous stance from the Jade Maiden swordplay. When the two were used in unison, the power of it immediately increased to a frightening level. Jinlun Fawang had no way to block both of the swords, so he quickly moved back. Two kai sounds were heard as the swords thrust at his body. Luckily, he dodged appropriately. The two sword tips brushed past him and just made some holes in his clothes. He broke out in a cold sweat from the shock. Jinlun Fawang urgently moved back another 2 steps to avoid the tip of the swords. He then heard Yang Guo call out, "Flowers under the moon!" The attack came downwards like an icy wheel hanging in the air. A light glimmering crossed the floor. Xiao Longnu's sword quivered like a flower fluttering in the wind, cutting across to and fro, dazzling Jinlun Fawang's eyes. He didn't know where the attacks were coming from. He could only leap back to avoid it. Yang Guo called out, "Drinking wine purely." The sword handle was raised, the sword tip aimed downwards, like raising a wine jug and pouring the wine. Xiao Longnu's sword was the opposite, the tip aiming upwards towards her cherry lips, like raising a cup of wine and drinking it. Jinlun Fawang saw that the sword stances of the two were becoming stranger and stranger, but they were matching each other. All the weaknesses of one were covered by the strengths of the other, and the lethal aspects of the stances were increasing without end. He was becoming more and more frightened, thinking, "The world is a large place. Indeed, there are many able people. How could I ever dream of such unimaginable swordplay in Tibet? I'm just a frog at the bottom of the well. I have seen little of the world's heroes." He was disheartened and looked even more like a defeated man. Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu had studied this final level of swordplay many times without reward. Now they were in extreme danger, the two of them concerned for each other. Both put the other's life above theirs as they rescued their lover first, fulfilling the main aim of this swordplay. Every stance of this swordplay displays actions done by two, perhaps stroking the zither and playing the flute, or maybe sweeping snow and preparing tea, or perhaps playing chess under the pine, or exchange of the cranes by the pond. All of them show a male and female together. The gracefulness and exquisiteness of the stances really was indescribable. Lin Kaying, lost in the game of love, spent the rest of her life in the tomb. She was versed in all the martial arts and literature, music and other arts. In the end, she incorporated all the things she had learned in her life into this set of martial arts. When she was developing this set of martial arts, she was trying to comfort herself. How would she know that tens of years later, a pair of lovers would use this set of martial arts to fight off a strong enemy? This was something that she could never have predicted. At first, Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu did not completely understand the swordplay's ingenuity, but eventually, as they kept on using it, their proficiency in the swordplay kept on getting better. If the male and female who used this set of swordplays weren't lovers, there would be many aspects of the swordplay they would not be able to comprehend. The two would not have a feeling of being linked with each other. If it were friends who were teaming up, they would be too polite. If it were a senior and junior, it wouldn't be suitable to rely on each other. However, if it were a husband and wife, they would be able to use some of the masterly aspects of this swordplay, but without the feelings of being drowned in love, the shyness, the feeling of being close yet far, the pain of gains and losses, they would be a level lower. Now Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu were deeply in love, but they had yet to marry. Their hearts were concerned about the hardships of the future. They were joyous and sad, sweet and bitter. This feeling of gradually being linked with each other was what Lin Kaying had intended to create when she developed the pure heart of the Jade Maiden sword. Huang Rong watched from the side, and she saw Xiao Longnu's cheeks going red, looking shy. Yang Guo would glance over at her all the time, returning her affection. Though they were fighting a strong enemy, they displayed their delights and joys, and the appearance of being deeply in love. Huang Rong couldn't stop from being startled, but at the same time she was infected by the two, and she began to remember feelings and events when she fell in love with Guo Jing. The restaurant was filled with the noise of a life and death battle, but in the midst of this, unexpectedly, there were the boundless feelings of love showing. Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu were now in tune with each other. It was even harder for Jinlun Fawang to defend. He regretted the fact that he had smashed up the chairs and tables earlier on. Otherwise, With the table and chairs as obstructions, the enemy's attacks would not be as lethal and swift. He saw that if he continued, he would definitely lose his life. He retreated down the stairs, step by step. Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu attacked from above, and they saw that they were about to drive him away. Huang Rong called out, "Rid the evil completely, Guo, don't let him go." She saw that the reason why Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu could beat Jinlun Fawang was because of this ingenious swordplay. It was somewhat fortunate that they had come up with this. If they spared Jinlun Fawang today and let a person with such abilities in martial arts go back and study for a way to defeat this swordplay, when the need to take his life arises again in the future, the task would be extremely difficult. Yang Guo agreed and launched a fatal attack, cultivating the chrysanthemum in the little garden, speaking at night at the western window, the couplet in the willow's shade, bamboo falling into the pond. When these stances came out, Jinlun Fawang nearly wasn't able to evade these attacks, let alone trying to counterattack. Yang Guo had originally listened to Huang Rong's instructions to take his life. But what he didn't know was that when Lin Kaying developed this particular swordplay, she was doing this to comfort herself. There was no intention to wound or kill the enemy, especially with a heart filled with love. Though this swordplay was powerful, it did not aim to take the opponent's life. Though Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu managed to force Jinlun Fawang to scramble around in a pathetic manner, taking his life was not an easy task. Jinlun Fawang did not know about the background of this swordplay. He just saw that the opponent's extraordinary stances folded in on each other. He knew that the enemy had yet to unleash their most powerful move. If the two attack, his old life would be lost. In this danger, a plan came into his mind. He used strength in his legs and snapped a stair step. He knew that with the obstruction of the hole in the stairs between him and the two, they would have no way to advance. By the time that a third step was snapped, the long swords could not reach his body. Yang Guo said seriously, "The martial arts of the Central Plains are led by the dog-beating stick technique and the donkey-piercing sword. Our swordplay is the donkey-piercing sword." Jinlun Fawang was startled and said, "Donkey-piercing sword?" Yang Guo said, "Yep, a swordplay that pierces bald donkeys." Jinlun Fawang then knew that Yang Guo was insulting him. He was furious and shouted, "Rude punk. You'll get to know the power of Jinlun Fawang." The iron wheel rang out with lang-lang noises as he left, taking large steps. All they saw was his body floating away quickly like a flash, disappearing in the shadows by the corner. Yang Guo knew it would be difficult to catch up. He turned around and saw Derba stand up holding up Hu Du, his face pale. He said, "Senior apprentice brother, are you going to kill me?" Yang Guo saw that the two looked pitiful. He said to Huang Rong, "Auntie Guo, should we let them go?" Huang Rong nodded. Yang Guo saw that Hu Du looked like he was in unbearable distress. He took out a bottle of jade bee honey from his pockets and pointed to Hu Du. He took medicine to Derba and gave the jar to him. Derba was delighted and he chatted with Hu Du for a while. Hu Du took out a packet of medicine and gave it to Yang Guo. He said, "The senior who used the pen fell under my poison nails. This is the antidote." Derba saluted Yang Guo and said, "Thank you, senior apprentice brother." Yang Guo copied his actions and smiled as he imitated his Tibetan. "Thank you, senior apprentice brother." Derba was surprised. Why did senior apprentice brother call me senior apprentice brother? A thought went through his mind, and then he understood. He's reincarnated as another person and is allowing me to be the senior apprentice brother. He doesn't want to fight for this position with me. He was even more touched and bowed deeply. He stretched out his arms and picked up Hu Du and then left with the rest of the Mongolian warriors. Yang Guo gave the antidote to Huang Rong and made a salute. He said, "Auntie Guo, nephew will leave now. Auntie and Uncle Guo take care." He felt sad as he thought about how this would be the last time he would see her. Huang Rong asked, "Where are you going?" Yang Guo said, Gu and I are going to live in seclusion in a place where there will be no people, never leaving again to avoid bringing shame to your and Uncle Gu's name." Huang Rong thought, "Today he has risked his life saving me and Far. This is not a small deed. Now I'm watching him going down this dark path. How can I not save him?" So she said, "There's no need to rush. We're all tired. We'll rent some rooms and rest for the night. We could part tomorrow." Yang Guo saw that she was earnest and sincere. It would be inappropriate to reject her offer, so he agreed. Huang Rong took out some money and gave it to the restaurant owner for the damages done, and then they went to an inn to rest. That night after supper, Huang Rong got rid of Guo Fu by telling her to go and talk with the Wu brothers. She called Xiao Longnu into her room and said, "Sister, I have something to give to you." Xiao Longnu said. What? Huang Rong pulled her in front of herself and took out a comb and brushed her hair, seeing her black silk hair hanging down across her shoulders, soft and shiny, extremely cute. She carefully rolled up her hair and removed a golden hair clasp from her own head and said, Sister, I'm giving you this to wear. The gold hair clasp was exquisitely produced. The body of it resembled the stem of a rose, the stem and flower looped around. The place where it connected formed an unfolding rose. Huang Yayashi collected countless treasures. Out of them she had picked out this golden hair clasp of masterly artisanship. Xiao Longnu had never worn any type of jewelry. To tie her hair she used a pine hairpin. Though she saw the hair clasp was striking, she did not think anything of it. She just thanked her casually. Huang Rong fitted the hair clasp on her hair and then immediately chatted with her in a leisurely manner. After talking to her for a while, she found that Xiao Longnu was very innocent and naive. She didn't know a thing about the ways of the world. Under the candlelight she saw her elegant and beautiful face, an extraordinary beauty. If she and Yang Guo weren't master and disciple, the two really were a great match. She asked, Sister, you really love Guo, don't you? Xiao Longnu beamed and said, Yes, why won't you people allow him to be with me? Huang Rong was startled. She remembered the times when she was young. Her father wouldn't allow her to marry Guo Jing. The Jiangnan 7 freaks called her a little witch. Only after many trials and tribulations did she and Guo Jing finally marry. She saw that Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu really loved each other. Could she make herself stop them? But the fact is that they are a master and disciple. If they become lovers, it would be greatly unethical. What face would they have left with the heroes of the world? She gave a sigh and said, Sister, there are many things that you don't understand about the world. If you and Guo become husband and wife, others will look down on you for a generation. Xiao Longnu gave a slight smile and said, What's so important about others looking down on me? Huang Rong was startled again. She felt that her words had the same attitude as that of she and her father, a real feeling of I do whatever I want, not caring about the views of the world. When she thought about this, she nodded. Such a character would not confine herself to the views of the world. But she then thought about the deep love and affection of her husband for Yang Guo. It wouldn't matter whether Yang Guo was going to become her son-in-law or not. She just hoped that his character and morals would be perfect, so she said, What about Guo? Others will look down on him as well. Xiao Longnu said, He and I will live in a place where no one can see us for rest of our lives, happy forever. Why should we care about others? Huang Rong asked. What place where no one can see you? Xiao Longnu said, It is a large ancient tomb. I have always lived there. Huang Rong was stunned and said, Could it be that you would live in there forever and never come out? Xiao Longnu was very happy. She stood up and paced back and forth across the room and then said, Yes, why go outside? The people outside are so bad. Huang Rong said, Guo has always roamed about since he was young. Won't he be bored staying in an ancient tomb forever? Xiao Longnu smiled and said, With me by his side, why would he get bored? Huang Rong sighed and said, At first, of course, he won't be bored. But after a few years, he would start to remember the beautiful outside world. If he can't come out when he gets older, he would be greatly troubled. Xiao Longnu was originally very happy and delighted. When she heard these words, her heart sank and said, I'm going to ask Guo, I don't want to speak with you anymore. She left the room. Huang Rong saw that her beautiful face suddenly showed signs of being disturbed. Her words just now had really hurt the heart of this innocent and naive girl. She immediately felt rather regretful, but she had another thought. She had seen many things, but this pair of young lovers were deeply in love. Even if these words aren't nice to the ear, it's the heart that matters. She thought, what would Guo say? So she quietly went over to Yang Guo's window to listen to their conversation. She heard Xiao Longnu ask, Guo, would you be troubled if you spent the rest of your life with me? Would you get tired of it? Yang Guo said, Why are you asking me again? You know that there isn't anything more I want in this world. We'll be together until we're old, our hair white and our teeth falling out. We would still love each other as we do now, not ever parting. His words were said earnestly and with real sincerity. When Xiao Longnu heard this, her heart was moved. She couldn't stop herself from being overwhelmed. After a while she said, Yes, my feelings are the same. She took out a rope from her bag and hung it across the room. She said, Go to bed, Yang Guo said. Auntie Guo said, Tonight you should go and sleep in the same room as she and her daughter, I with the Wu brothers in another room. When Huang Rong heard these words outside, she was extremely startled. Those two really are doing such things. Then the words of that old Taoist Zhao Zhaijing weren't a lie. When she thought about the two of them sleeping together on the same bed, She felt that it would be inappropriate to eavesdrop on them and was about to leave when she suddenly saw a white flash going across the room. Someone was lying in midair. After moving for a bit, they stopped. Huang Rong was surprised and used the moonlight in the room to see what was going on. She saw Xiao Longnu lying on a rope in midair while Yang Guo slept on the bed. Though the two slept in the same room, they kept their respect. Huang Rong stood in the courtyard. She felt that the actions of these two were greatly different to others. It really was difficult to discuss their rights and wrongs. She stood there for a while and was about to enter her room to rest when she heard footsteps. Guo Fu and the Wu brothers had returned. Huang Rong said, "Dunner Zier, you brothers go and get another room to rest in. Don't stay with Brother Yang." The Wu brothers agreed. Guo Fu asked, "Mother, why?" Huang Rong said, "It's none of your business." Wu Ziyuan laughed and said, "I know why. Those two are a master and disciple, yet they aren't. That dirty couple is sleeping in the same room." Huang Rong reprimanded him. "Zier, what dirty things are you saying?" Wu Dunru said, "Master wife, you are too kind. Why should you care about those sorts of people?" "I won't speak to him." Guo Fu said, "Those two saved us. That was a great deed." Wu Ziyuan said, I rather die by the hands of Jinlun Fawang than suffer a favor from animals." Huang Rong didn't look happy. She said, "Stop talking, go and rest." Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu heard all this. Yang Guo had never gotten on with the Wu brothers ever since they were kids. He just snickered and didn't take it to heart. But Xiao Longnu was carefully thinking, "Why is it that if Guo and I are together, he becomes an animal and us a dirty couple?" She couldn't grasp this, and in the middle of the night she woke Yang Guo up and asked, "Guo, there is one thing that you must answer truthfully. After living with me in the ancient tomb for a few years, would you start to think about the outside world?" Yang Guo was startled and didn't reply for a while. Xiao Longnu continued to ask, "If you don't go out, would you become troubled? Though your love for me will never change, would you get bored living in the tomb for such a long time?" Yang Guo felt that it was difficult to answer these questions. As he thought about it, living with Xiao Longnu forever really would be better than living as a god. But in a cold and dark tomb, even if he didn't get tired of the tomb in 10 or 20 years, what about in 30 years? What about 40 years? Replying casually, "I would never get bored" would be easy, but he has always been frank and true towards Xiao Longnu. He had never said half a lie to her. He pondered for a while and said, "Gu Gu, if we get bored and tired of living in the tomb, we'll go out together." Xiao Longnu gave an N sound, not saying any more. She thought, Mrs. Gu's words weren't a lie. In the future, he will get bored and will leave the tomb, and then everyone will be looking down on him. How can he live like that? Why do people look down on him if he and I get together? It looks like I'm an ominous person. I love him, I care for him, I would give my life for him. But these feelings will lead him to have an unhappy life. It looks like it would be better for him not to marry me. It must be for that reason that he refused to agree to marry me that night on Mount Zhongnan. She kept on going over this in her mind for a long while. Yang Guo's breathing slowed. He was in deep sleep. Xiao Longnu leapt down lightly and went to his bedside. She stared at his handsome face. Her heart was in a mess. Her emotions kept on turning over. She couldn't stop tears from flowing. Yang Guo woke up the next morning and felt his shoulder and head was wet. He was slightly surprised and saw that Xiao Longnu wasn't in the room. He sat up and saw some words carefully carved on the table with a golden needle. "Take care, forget about me." Yang Guo's mind immediately became confused. He stood there stunned and was at his wits' end. He saw that the tears on the table had yet to dry. The dampness on his shoulder and head were also caused by her tears. He wasn't thinking straight. He opened the window and leapt out, calling out, "Gu Gu, Gu Gu." The waiter of the inn came over to serve him. Yang Guo asked him when the girl in white left and which direction she headed in. The waiter stared at him. He didn't know how to reply. Yang Guo knew that the opportunity to find her was ever diminishing. If he can't find her today, then there may not be a chance to see her ever again. He went to the stables and leapt onto the skinny horse. At this time, Guo Fu came out of her room and asked, "Where are you going?" Yang Guo heard but didn't reply. He hurried to the main road and galloped north. In a short while, he had gone over tens of li. He kept on calling out, "Gu Gu, Gu Gu," on the way, but where was Xiao Longnu? After a little while, he saw Jinlun Fawang and his followers on horseback heading west. They all felt shocked when they saw him riding by himself. Jinlun Fawang pulled his reins and galloped towards him. Yang Guo had not brought a weapon with him. Meeting the enemy like this was extremely dangerous, but the only thing on his mind right now was Xiao Longnu. He didn't even consider his own safety. When he saw Jinlun Fawang coming towards him, he actually turned his horse towards him and went forward to meet him. He asked, "Have you seen my master?" Jinlun Fawang was surprised that he didn't run away. He was even more startled when he heard him ask this. He casually replied, "No, isn't she with you?" At first, both of them didn't really think too deeply as they asked and replied, but shortly after, both of them thought about how Yang Guo, being by himself, was not a match for Jinlun Fawang. The two of them looked each other in the eye and both knew. Yang Guo kicked his legs as Jinlun Fawang sent out a hand to grab him, but the skinny horse was exceptionally spirited. It galloped like the wind past him. Jinlun Fawang tried to catch up, but Yang Guo and the horse had galloped afar. It would be difficult to catch up with him. Jinlun Fawang had a thought and reined in his horse. Since he and his master has separated, what more have I got to be afraid of? If Chief Huang hasn't gotten far. Ha ha. He then gathered his men and led them back. Yang Guo searched for another while, and still there was no trace of Xiao Longnu within tens of li. Emotions stirred in his heart. He felt dizzy and shaky and almost fainted on the back of the horse. He thought with sadness and lamented, "Why did Gugu leave me again? How have I offended her again? She cried many tears before she left. She's not angry with me." He suddenly thought of something. "Ah, yes, it must be because of what I said about getting tired of the ancient tomb. She thought that I didn't want to spend the rest of my life with her." His eyes glistened as it became clear as to what he should do. "She's returning to the tomb. I'll just go back and be with her." Yang Guo's tears turned into smiles, and he flipped over a few times on the horse's back. Now, as the horse dashed and galloped, he wasn't thinking straight and didn't clarify which direction he was heading in. Then he settled down, he determined where north was, and turned the horse around and headed for Mount Jiangnan. The more he thought about it, the more he believed this was most likely as to where she would be. Most of the pain and despair had now disappeared. He opened his mouth and sang a mountain song. After midday, he arrived at a small roadside eating place. He finished eating some buns but remembered that when he left in a rush, he forgot to bring money with him. When the owner of the shop was off guard, he quickly leapt onto the horse and galloped away. He heard the insults of the owner from far away, but what could he do to Yang Guo? He couldn't stop himself from laughing inside. He continued traveling until Shen Pai Shifen. Evening. All he saw in front of him now was a dense, dark, and deep forest. Shouts and insults could be heard from within the forest. He was slightly alarmed and listened closely. It was the voices of Jinlun Fawang and Guo Fu. He knew something was wrong and leapt off the horse. He placed the reins on the saddle and hid behind trees. He slowly followed the voices, and after about 100 feet or so, he saw Huang Rong and her daughter with the Wu brothers fending off Jinlun Fawang in a pile of jumbled rocks deep in the forest. He saw bloodstains on the faces and clothes of the Wu brothers. Huang Rong's and Guo Fu's hair was in a mess, and they looked wretched. It appeared that if it wasn't for the fact that Jinlun Fawang wanted to keep them alive, they would have long ago died by his iron wheel. Yang Guo was surprised. He took a closer look and saw that Guo Fu and the Wu brothers also relied on the rocks to avoid danger. In the midst of this danger, all they had to do was hide behind the rocks. Derba and the others circled from afar. They could close in from any direction. At that time, Guo Fu and the others would hide behind another pile of disorderly rocks. Yang Guo was extremely surprised. Those normal-looking pile of rocks actually had such an ingenious use. It really was uncanny. It looked like Huang Rong and the others would be safe from danger, but there was no way for them to leave the rock formation. Jinlun Fawang kept on attacking without stop. Though he managed to injure the Wu brothers, it wasn't life-threatening, and on their side, one of the Mongolians died by Guo Fu's sword. He saw that there was something strange with this pile of rocks formed by Huang Rong. He first had to grasp and see through the theories behind it before he could get to the fore. He had always thought highly of his intelligence. It's not too urgent at the moment since they can't escape his clutches. Once he's seen through this formation, he'll break into it and capture them, showing his power. So he waved out his left hand and ordered his men back. He also retreated back 10 feet or so, staring at and studying the rock formation. Most formation uses variations of the Wu Xing Ba Gua trigram. Jinlun Fawang was well versed with these types of tactics. He thought that although the formation was strange, it won't be too far off from the theories of the 5 elements. He studied it for a long while. When it looked like he saw through an aspect of the formation, he pondered on it further, and it then didn't make sense. The left wing was correct, but the right wing changed. When he seemingly saw through the front of the formation, it was difficult to understand the back of it. He was taken aback by this. He was startled and in awe. He excelled in everything, a real outstanding person of the world. With this difficult problem in front of him, he wanted to rely on his own intellect to solve it. Yang Guo watched as Jinlun Fawang stood there without moving, his eyebrows raised. Suddenly his eyes glistened and he flashed over, breaking into the formation, grabbing Guo Fu's arm and quickly retreated. Huang Rong and the brothers were extremely shocked with this sudden change of events. They were at their wits' end. If they left the formation to rescue Guo Fu, they would definitely suffer under his hands. What had happened was that Guo Fu became careless when she saw the enemy frozen like that. She didn't follow her mother's instructions as to where to stand and was out of the formation's protection. When Jinlun Fawang saw this opportunity, he immediately went over and captured her. He then sealed a pressure point on the side of her body and placed her down on the ground. He deliberately kept her mute pressure point unsealed, letting her call out and plead, wanting her to agitate Huang Rong into exiting the formation. Guo Fu felt her body ache unbearably and she couldn't stop herself from calling out. How could Huang Rong not know what the enemy was planning? But when she heard the calls of her daughter, her heart ached unbearably. She could only bite down on her lips and endure it. From behind a tree, Yang Guo understood what was happening. He saw Huang Rong raising her stick, about to come out from the rock formation and rescue her daughter. This was extremely dangerous. He didn't give it much thought and suddenly leapt out and grabbed Guo Fu from behind, throwing himself forward into the rock formation. Jinlun Fawang's iron wheel flew out towards Yang Guo's back. Yang Guo was in midair. It would be difficult to dodge this attack. He pushed Guo Fu towards Huang Rong and used the 1,000-kilogram fall. His body dropped straight down and fell down solidly onto the pile of rocks. He heard the kiang lang lang sound of the iron wheel brushing past his head. The wheel circled around and came back into Jinlun Fawang's hand. Huang Rong hugged her daughter lovingly. She saw Yang Guo pick himself up from the rocks. His eyes were green and nose bruised. She quickly stretched out her stick and led him into the formation. Jinlun Fawang's plan had failed, and again it was due to Yang Guo. But instead of being angry, he was actually pleased. He gave a chuckle and said, "Fine, coming here now saves me the trouble of finding you later on." Yang Guo risked his life for this rescue out of righteous indignation. Only after entering the formation did he see that by doing this, his life would most probably end soon. He would never have the opportunity to see Xiao Longnu ever again. He couldn't stop himself from feeling regret. Huang Rong asked, "Where's your master?" Yang Guo gloomily said, "She suddenly left in the middle of the night. I was in the middle of searching for her." Huang Rong sighed and said, "Guo, why did you have to risk your life again?" Yang Guo gave a bitter laugh and shook his head. He said, "Auntie Guo, I'm not too bright. Once my emotions get the better of me, I can't control myself." Huang Rong said, "Good child. You have a great heart, your father." She stopped mid-sentence. Yang Guo's voice trembled. "Auntie Guo, my father was a bad person, wasn't he?" Huang Rong's head hung down and said, "You want to know about it?" She suddenly called out, "Careful, come over here." She pulled him over 2 piles of rock and avoided Jinlun Fawang's sneak attack. Yang Guo took a look at the rock formation in awe. He said, "Auntie Guo, there isn't anyone else in the world who has your intelligence and wisdom." Huang Rong unsealed her daughter's pressure point and massaged her. She gave a slight smile but didn't reply. Guo Fu said, "What do you know? My grandfather taught my mother skills. My grandfather is as intelligent." Yang Guo had seen the handwriting and articles of Huang Yaoshi before when he was on Peach Blossom Island, but then he was young. He didn't understand the intricacies within it. When Guo Fu reminded him, he nodded and drifted away. He sighed and said, "When will I be able to greet this senior? If I do, my life won't be all in vain." Suddenly, Jinlun Fawang charged past 2 rock formations and attacked. Yang Guo didn't have a weapon and quickly picked up the stick that Huang Rong had flung on the ground and dashed out to stop him. He sent out 2 strokes with the stick, using the dog beating stick technique. Jinlun Fawang saw that his stick technique was profound. He concentrated and fought with him. After a few stances, both of them suddenly tripped up on the jumbled rocks. Both stumbled. Fawang was afraid that he would be ambushed and leapt out of the formation. Huang Rong led Yang Guo back and ordered Guo Fu and the Wu brothers to move the stones and change the formation. She asked Yang Guo, "Where exactly did you learn this stick technique from?" Yang Guo told her the truth about how he met Hong Qigong on Mount Hua, how the northern beggar dueled with western poison, how Hong Qigong taught him the dog-beating stick techniques. He then told her of the passing of both Hong Qigong and Aoyang Feng. Huang Rong felt deep sorrow at this news, but then sighed and said, "You've come upon such extraordinary meetings. It really is rare to come across such events." She suddenly had a thought and said, "Guo, you are very clever. Think of a way to escape today's dangers." Yang Guo looked at her. Judging from her expression, she had already thought of a plan. He pretended he didn't know and said, "If you were feeling well, me and you could beat Fawang. Or if we could get my master to come here, then that would be a way as well." Huang Rong said, "How can my health recover over such a short period of time? We don't know where your master has gone. I have another plan. It involves the rock formation. This formation was devised by my father. There are hundreds of variations. We haven't used even 20% of them yet." Yang Guo was shocked and pleased. He sighed in awe as he thought about the knowledge that Huang Yaoshi possessed. Huang Rong said, "My master only taught you the stances of the dog-beating stick technique, and you've only heard the main points of the formulae while you hid in the tree. I'm now going to teach you all the profound and subtle variations and changes of this technique." Yang Guo was delighted, but he pretended to dismiss this. He said, "I'm afraid that won't do. The dog-beating stick technique is passed on to the beggar clan's chief only. It has never been passed on to an outsider." Huang Rong rolled her eyes. She said, "What are you trying in front of me now? My master has taught you 30% of this technique. You learnt another 20% when you eavesdropped. Today I'll teach you another 20%. The final 30% relies on your intelligence and how you grasp and understand the technique. No one can teach you this. 1, no one is teaching you the whole thing. 2, today's situation is desperate. Just follow the order." Yang Guo knelt down on the ground and bowed to her. He smiled and said, "Auntie Guo, when I was young you said you were going to teach me martial arts. Today you are teaching me." Huang Rong gave a subtle smile and said, "You've always bitterly kept this in your heart, haven't you?" Yang Guo said, "How would I dare?" Huang Rong then quietly imparted all the aspects of the dog-beating stick technique to him. From outside the rock formation, Jinlun Fawang saw Yang Guo kowtowing to Huang Rong. The two of them laughed as they talked. He didn't know what on earth they were trying now. It appeared that they were confident about the situation, and it looked like they weren't even giving him a second thought. Though he was angry, he had always been careful and meticulous. Though he knew that their martial arts could not compare with his, the two of them are extremely crafty. Why should he be careless and fall into their traps? He wanted to see through what they had in mind and then make his decision. Luckily, he slowed his attacks. Without the distraction of the enemy, Huang Rong passed on everything to Yang Guo in under an hour's time. Yang Guo's intelligence and perception was 100 times better than Lu Yaojiao. If you asked him one thing, he knew 10. If you asked him to raise 1 point, he raised 3. He had spent a great deal of effort in learning this technique and had pondered hundreds of times on the things he didn't understand. Because of this fact, when Huang Rong advised and pointed him in the right direction, he immediately understood and grasped everything about the technique. From afar, Jinlun Fawang saw that Huang Rong looked at ease, her lips moving slightly, yet Yang Guo was scratching his ear and touching his cheeks. He didn't know what the two were conjuring up. Most probably it wasn't to his best interests. He should break up their conversation. After listening to the important aspects, Yang Guo asked 10 or so difficult questions. Huang Rong explained it all to him. She said, "Good, since you can ask these questions, then that means you understand a great deal. The second stage is to trap the monk in the formation." Yang Guo was startled and said, "Capture him?" Huang Rong said, "What's so hard about that? With you and I teamed up, we've got more intelligence and strength than needed. Right now, I'm going to explain the key points of this rock formation to you. You most probably won't be able to understand it in such a short time, but luckily you have a great memory. All you've got to do is remember 36 different types of changes." She then started to list them. How the green dragon appears as the white tiger, how the black forces transforms into the vermilion sparrow. The rock formation was derived from Zhuge Liang's central map of the 8 formations. Years ago, Zhuge Liang had set up a formation on the shores of the Changjiang River using stone slabs. After Dong Wu's General Lu Zun entered the formation, it was difficult for him to escape. Now Huang Rong had set up one of Zhuge's methods, but because time was pressing, Huang Rong did not set up the formation completely. However, only a few things were missing. Even so, the formation disturbed Jinlun Fawang. He stared at the 5 of them, but he didn't dare make a move. The 36 variations of this formation were very complicated. Even with Yang Guo's intelligence, he could only remember 10 or so changes. It was now evening. Jinlun Fawang slowly waited to make his move. Huang Rong said, "With these 10 or so changes, it's enough to trap him. Go out and lure him into the formation, I'll then change it and trap him in there. Yang Guo was delighted and said, Auntie Guo, if I visit Peach Blossom Island again, would you be willing to teach me this type of skill? Huang Rong gave a smile and said, If you are willing to visit the island, why wouldn't I be willing to teach you this? You risked your life and saved Fur and I twice now. Could I still treat you the same way as before? When Yang Guo heard this, he was filled with an extremely relaxed and comfortable feeling throughout his chest. What does it matter whether Huang Rong teaches him or not? He felt that even if he had 100 deaths, he would not have any regrets. He raised his bamboo stick and exited the formation, calling out, Rusty old Jinlun Fawang, if you've got guts, then come over and go through 300 stances with me. Jinlun Fawang was worried that they had planned something in the formation to ambush him. He couldn't have asked for more when he saw Yang Guo coming out of the formation. The iron wheel rang kiang lang lang as he chopped out. He was afraid that Yang Guo would escape back into the formation if he started to lose. After the first 2 stances, he had already blocked his path back, forcing him as far away from the formation as possible. How could he know that after Yang Guo learned the important aspects of the dog-beating stick technique? His technique was superb. When he used the 8-key formulae of trip, chop, coil, poke, stir, seal, lead, and turn, the variations and changes were indeed subtle and ingenious. When he made a careless attack, Yang Guo poked him in the leg, though he managed to shut his pressure point to the danger and stop injury. The pain lasted a long time. He didn't dare be careless after he suffered that attack. He spun his wheel and concentrated on the battle. Though his opponent was just a young man in his teens, he treated him as formidable enemy. He attacked with respect and defended tightly, looking upon him as a great master. When he did this, Yang Guo immediately felt he couldn't hold on. Though the dog-beating stick was ingenious, it is difficult to perform straight after learning it. Yang Guo used the seal formulae to block the attack of the iron wheel and then shifted his legs, suddenly going east and then surging west. Jinlun Fawang followed the changes of his bamboo stick. He felt that it was about time to act. When he saw Yang Guo surging and attacking away from the formation, Fawang kept on moving backwards to lure him as far away from the formation as possible. He didn't predicted that, after moving back over 10 or so steps, his right leg suddenly tripped over a large rock. He had unwittingly been lured into the formation. He knew something was wrong. He then heard Huang Rong call out, The vermilion sparrow displaces the green dragon. The Zun position changes to the Li, wood into water. Guo Fu and the Wu brothers shifted the rocks and changed the formation. Jinlun Fawang's face lost its color from shock. He stopped his wheel to inspect the surroundings, while Yang Guo's bamboo stick coiled its way around towards him. Though Yang Guo's dog-beating stick technique wasn't good enough to meet him head-on, it was more than enough to confuse and distract him. Fawang's legs were tripped up a few times and he almost couldn't stand up. He knew that this formation was powerful. The longer he was in it, the more confusing it became. In this danger, he shouted and leaped up on top of a pile of rocks. Normally, being on top of the rocks keeps one from being trapped and confused by the formation and allows them to regain their sense of direction. He thought that if he went forward in a straight line, he will be able to get out of the formation. But he didn't know that he just went from east to west, north to south, and had circled around a couple of times over an area of 100 feet. Eventually, his vigor was depleted, and he stopped on the rocks. As soon as he landed on top of the pile of rocks, Yang Guo waved out the bamboo stick to his leg. Fawang's weapon was short and couldn't be used to protect all of his body. He could only drop down back to the ground and sweep out his wheel to counterattack. After another 10 or so moves, the sky had darkened. He was surrounded by rocks everywhere. The formation seemed to give off an eerie air. Even someone as bold as he couldn't stop himself from being slightly frightened, suddenly his mind lit up. He had a plan. His left leg lifted up. A 20-plus kilo, 44 lb, stone was lifted in the air and sent flying. His right leg came out and another large stone went flying. He darted around, his legs kept on kicking out. The rocks collided with each other and sparks flew. In a flash, the formation had been broken. Huang Rong, Yang Guo, and the others were extremely shocked by this, and they had to keep on moving to avoid the rocks falling from the sky. If Jinlun Fawang just wanted to leave the formation, it couldn't be easier. But he turned defense into attack, and his left palm came searching out to capture Huang Rong. Yang Guo sent the tip of the stick towards his back. Fawang swerved his iron wheel and repelled it. However, his left palm had hung onto Huang Rong's shoulder. If she leapt back, she could have avoided this, but she heard an urgent gust of wind coming down. A large rock was smashing down behind her at that time. She could only use the great trapping hand to reverse his grab and hooked onto his left wrist. Jinlun Fawang said, "Good." He let her hook his left wrist and waited for her to use force to fling him away. He suddenly circulated his strength and pulled her towards him. If it was any other time, Huang Rong could have circulated her internal energy and escaped from this pull. But right now she didn't have sufficient internal energy. She called out, "Ai!" and fell. Jinlun Fawang's martial arts were much higher than his. Before they hit the ground, his right palm had come waving out towards Yang Guo's chest. Yang Guo quickly stretched out his left arm to block it. A pie sound was heard as their palms struck. Yang Guo felt blood surging upwards from his chest. His body flew away like a rock. Just at this time, the last remaining rock fell down fiercely from the sky. A pang sound was heard as it struck Jinlun Fawang on the back. It was an extremely heavy collision. Even if Jinlun Fawang's internal energy were higher, he would not be able to take it. Though he circulated his internal energy to divert the rock away, his body wobbled a few times, and he eventually fell forward onto the ground. In a short period of time, the formation had been broken and stones had rained down. Huang Rong, Jinlun Fawang, and Yang Guo were all on the ground injured. Disciples of the Eastern Heretic. Inside the formation were the extremely shocked Wu brothers and Guo Fu. Outside the formation were Derba and the Mongolian warriors. They dashed forward to rescue Fawang. Derba had terrifying strength. There were many skilled fighters within the crowd of Mongolian warriors. How could Guo Fu and the Wu brothers fight them off? Suddenly, a swaying Jinlun Fawang stood up and waved his iron wheel. The Qiang Lang Lang sounds were soul disturbing. His face was pale. He laughed out at the sky, yet his laugh was filled with a cold and mournful feeling. The band of people all looked at each other startled and stopped their advance. Jinlun Fawang hissed, "I have never suffered even half an injury whilst in battle in my entire life. Today I actually injured myself." He stretched out his hand and grabbed Huang Rong's back. Yang Guo's chest was severely injured by Jinlun Fawang's palm. He didn't have any strength to stand up and crawled across the ground. When he saw Huang Rong in danger, he again swept out his stick to repel this grab. But as soon as he used any strength, he spat out a pool of blood. Huang Rong said mournfully, "Guo, we give in, don't fight on, take care of yourself." Guo Fu raised her long sword and protected her mother. Yang Guo quietly said, "Sister Fu, run away quickly. It's important to tell your father about this." Guo Fu's mind was in a mess. She knew her martial arts were poor, but how could she leave her mother? Jinlun Fawang swung his iron wheel slightly, and the wheel collided with Guo Fu's sword. A dang sound was heard and a white light glimmered. The sword flew up into the air and landed in the forest. Jinlun Fawang was about to push her out of the way and grab Huang Rong when suddenly a girl's voice from behind said, "Wait!" Jinlun Fawang saw that her face was extremely terrifying. It looked 3 parts human and 7 parts ghost. He has never seen such a strange face before in his life. He couldn't stop himself from being startled and said, "Who are you?" The young girl didn't answer and pushed a rock in between Jinlun Fawang and Huang Rong. She said, "You're the famous Jinlun Fawang." Her face was ugly, but her voice was gentle and tender. Fawang said, "Correct, what is your name?" The girl replied, "I'm a nameless young girl, you won't know me." As she said this, she moved another slab of stone 3 inches. The sun had gone down long ago. The forest was full of darkness. Jinlun Fawang's mind lit up and shouted, "What are you doing?" He was about to stop the girl from moving the stones when she suddenly called out, "The horned wooden dragon changes into the overbearing golden dragon." Guo Fu and the Wu brothers were startled, and they all pondered. How does she know the changes of the formation? But they heard her voice had a commanding tone and immediately started to move the rocks according to her instructions. 4 or 5 stones were moved. The scattered formation changed again. Jinlun Fawang was alarmed and angry. He shouted, "Little girl, you dare to come and mess things around." He just heard her say, "The moon fox turns into the day rabbit. The crow of the final moon shifts into the wooden wolf of Kui. Bat of the earth enters the room of the fire pig." All the things that she called out were the 28 positions of Su. Guo Fu and the Wu brothers felt that the way she led the formation was exactly the way that Huang Rong did while she led formations. They were delighted and used all their efforts in moving the rocks. They saw that they were about to trap Jinlun Fawang in the formation again. Jinlun Fawang had circulated his internal energy with force to protect himself from the wound from the collision with the rock. Though the injury didn't react for now, he actually had a serious internal injury. He had no way to start kicking the stones again. He knew that in just a little while he would be trapped in the stone formation again. His disciple Derba was brave, but he doesn't understand the formation, and so it would be difficult for him to help. He saw that Huang Rong was picking herself up, struggling to stand upright. All he needed to do was take a few steps forward, and he would be able to capture her. But saving himself was more important right now. He picked up his iron wheel and sent an attack towards Wu Ziyuan's head. After he suffered the injury, his arms had no strength. He was forcing himself to move the iron wheel. If Wu Ziyuan had a sword, he would be able to knock the wheel out of his hands. But Fawang was surrounded by a powerful air. Though the stance had no force behind it, it still looked like the real thing. How could Wu Ziyuan dare to take this attack? He immediately withdrew back into the formation. Jinlun Fawang slowly walked out of the formation and stood there in a daze for a while thinking, "I'm afraid that I'll never get an opportunity as good as this again. Could it be that heaven is protecting the song and stopping me from succeeding? The Wulin of the Central Plain have many able people. These few youngsters are already versed in both the arts and martial arts. Just they alone make strong opponents. Our Mongolian and Tibetan warriors pale by comparison." He held his chest and sighed. He turned around and walked away. 10 or so steps later, a kiang lang lang sound was heard. The wheel had fallen to the ground as he struggled to stay up. Derba was alarmed and called out, "Master!" He dashed over and held him up and said, "Master, are you all right?" Fawang frowned and didn't reply. He stretched out his arm and leaned on his shoulder and quietly said, "What a pity! What a pity, let's go." A Mongolian warrior led a horse over. Due to his injury, Jinlun Fawang had no strength to pull himself up on the horse. Derba used his left palm and pushed his master's waist and helped him up on the horse. They left heading east. The girl in blue-green slowly walked towards Yang Guo. She stopped and bent down to examine his face, wanting to see how seriously injured he was. It was now deep into the night. Things couldn't be seen clearly even if it was just a distance of 1 inch away from your face. She went up to Yang Guo's face and saw that his eyes were open wide, seemingly in a trance. His cheeks were red and his breathing rapid. It appeared that his injury was not light. In this blurry state, all he saw was a pair of soft and gentle eyes in front of his face, like the way Xiao Longnu's eyes appeared when she looked at him. It was soft and gentle, understanding and caring. He opened his arms and grabbed the girl and called out, "Gu Gu, Gyur is hurt, don't leave me." The girl in blue-green was embarrassed and flustered. She struggled slightly. Yang Guo's chest immediately suffered a flash of pain, and he couldn't stop himself from calling out, "Aiya." The girl didn't dare to struggle and quietly said, "I'm not your Gu Gu. Let me go." Yang Guo stared at her eyes and pleaded, "Gu Gu, don't leave me. I'm your Gyur." The girl's heart softened and said gently, "I'm not your Gu Gu." The sky was even darker now. The girl's terrifying face was hidden, showing only a pair of bright pupils. Yang Guo pulled her hand and pleaded, you are, don't leave me again." The young girl was held by him, her body burnt up with embarrassment. She didn't know what to do. Suddenly Yang Guo's mind became clear. He saw that the girl in front of him was not Xiao Longnu. He was extremely disappointed. His mind turned upside down and he fainted. The young girl was shocked. She saw Guo Fu and the Wu brothers surrounding Huang Rong, showing concern and serving her, yet Yang Guo had no one. She knew that his injury was serious. If he doesn't take her master's medicine, his life will be in danger. She supported his waist and pushed and pulled him out of the formation and then slowly walked out of the forest. The skinny horse was very sharp. It recognized its master and rushed towards him. The girl put him on the horse's back, but she didn't get on. She held the horse's reins and walked on. Yang Guo was conscious one moment, and in a daze the next. Sometimes he thought that the person next to him was Xiao Longnu, and he called out in delight. Other times he found out that she wasn't, and his whole body felt as if it was in an ice cellar. After some time, he felt a clear fragrance enter the places where his chest was injured. It was extremely comfortable. He was startled and discovered that he was now lying on a couch. A thin blanket covered his body. He wanted to sit up, but suddenly felt a severe pain going through his chest. He couldn't move. He turned his head and saw a girl in blue-green by the window. Her left hand was holding down a piece of paper, her right holding a brush. She was in the middle of doing calligraphy. Her back was towards the couch and he couldn't see her face. Her back was slender with a fine waist, extremely elegant and beautiful. He took a look around and found out that he was in the room of a thatch house. The benches, chairs, table, and bed were all simple and crude. The four walls were gloomy, yet it felt peaceful and serene. Beside the bed were a long zither and a jade flute. All he remembered was how he fought with Jinlun Fawang in the forest, but his mind was a blank as to how he got to this place. He concentrated harder and recalled that he was on his horse's back. Someone was leading them, a girl. Now he remembered the girl in front of him was that girl. She was now concentrating on her calligraphy. He saw her arm moved lightly, her form graceful and elegant. There wasn't a sound in the room. It felt like he had arrived in a completely different world to the heated battle he had just been in. He didn't dare to make a noise and disturb the young girl. He just lay down on the couch peacefully. It was like settling down again after a dream. He really didn't know what world he was in. His mind suddenly lit up. The girl in blue-green in front of him was the girl who gave him the warning on the Chang'an Road, and later on she helped him save Lu Wuxia. There were no ties between him and her. Why was she treating him so well? He couldn't stop his mouth from opening. "Sister, so it's you who has saved me again." The girl stopped her brush, but she didn't turn around. She said softly, "You can't really say I saved you. I happened to be passing by and saw how unreasonable that Tibetan monk was, and you were injured as well." She lowered her head slightly after she said this. Yang Guo said, "Sister, He was touched, but his throat choked up and he couldn't make a sound. The young girl said, "You have a good heart. You save other people without regard for your life. I just gave a little help." "It's nothing," Yang Guo said. "Auntie Guo raised me. Of course I had to use all my efforts in saving her when she was in danger, but sister and I." The young girl said, "I'm not talking about your Auntie Guo. I'm talking about Lu Wuxuang's sister Lu." The young girl replied, "Thank you for your concern. She has recovered from her injury. You haven't forgotten her." From her tone, Yang Guo could tell that she and Lu Wuxuang are very close. He asked, "I wonder how sister greets Miss Lu." The young girl didn't reply. She gave a subtle smile and said, "Don't call me elder sister this, elder sister that. I'm not older than you." After a while, she laughed and said, "I'm afraid that it's a bit too late now to change your greeting after calling me Goo Goo a few times." Yang Guo's face went red. He knew that when he was dazed and unclear after the injury, he must have wrongly recognized her as Xiao Longnu, incessantly calling out, "Goo Goo." It could be that he also said some tender and affectionate things. The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he got. He stuttered, You're not offended, are you?" The young girl laughed and said, "Of course I'm not offended. Just rest here peacefully. You can search for your Goo Goo when you've recovered from your injury." She continued, "Don't be too worried. You'll eventually find her." Those few words were affectionate and considerate, and within the softness there was respect. It made a person feel at ease and happy. This was completely different to all the other girls he knew. She wasn't like Lu Wuxuang, who was vivacious and wily, and even further away from the unrestrained pride of Gu Fu. Yelu Yan was straight to the point, and Wan Yinping was long-suffering and piteous. When it came to Xiao Longnu, at first she was cold as frost and unfeeling, but eventually she fell in love and all her emotions were stirred and brought forward. This girl in blue-green was cultured and refined, warm and attentive. She knew that he missed his Goo Goo, so she advised him to rest peacefully first, and once he had recovered, he could go and find her. He felt that being with her made him feel relaxed and calm. After she said these words, she picked up her brush again. Yang Guo said, "Sister, what is your surname?" The girl said, "Don't ask questions, just rest peacefully on the bed and stop thinking so much. Your injury will recover quicker." Yang Guo said, "Fine. Actually, I knew that I was asking in vain. You wouldn't even let me see your face, let alone know your name." The young girl sighed and said, "My face is ugly. You've seen it before." Yang Guo said, No. That's when you had the human skin mask on." The young girl said, "If I'm as beautiful as your Goo Goo, why do I need to wear this mask?" Yang Guo was pleased when she praised Xiao Longnu's beauty. He asked, "How do you know my Goo Goo is beautiful?" "You've seen her before?" The young girl said, "I haven't seen her before, but the way you think about her, spellbound and completely enchanted, she must be the #1 beauty in the world." Yang Guo sighed and said, "I long for her not because of her beauty. Even if she was the ugliest woman in the world, I would still long for her like this. But if you see her yourself, you will definitely praise her beauty even more." If Gu Fu or Lu Wuxuang heard these words, they would definitely answer back with some chiding comment. But this young girl replied, "It must be true. Not only is she beautiful, she treats you extremely well." After she said this, she continued on with her calligraphy. Yang Guo looked up at the ceiling for a while, but he couldn't stop himself from turning around and facing the slender back of the young girl. He asked, "Sister, what are you writing?" The young girl replied, I'm practicing calligraphy. Yang Guo said, What bei tai, beautiful calligraphy written on silk / beautifully presented calligraphy, are you copying? Yang Guo said, You're too modest, I can tell it's definitely great. The young girl laughed and said, Strange, how can you tell? Yang Guo said, Someone as elegant and refined as you must have calligraphy that is also elegant and refined. Sister, how about letting me look at what you've written? The young girl gave another light laugh and said, My writing can't see the light of day. I'll need to ask you for lessons when you've recovered. Yang Guo secretly said, Shameful. He couldn't stop himself from appreciating the lessons of literature and calligraphy that Huang Rong taught him on Peach Blossom Island. If he didn't have that experience, he wouldn't be able to tell what someone was writing, let alone distinguish the difference between beautiful and ugly calligraphy. As he was lost in thought, he felt a throbbing pain in his chest. Immediately, he circulated his internal energy, Kai flowing through his pressure points. He gradually felt comfortable and at ease, and soon he fell into a deep sleep. By the time he woke up, the sky had already gone dark. The girl had prepared a few dishes and had put them on a short table next to the bed he was on. She helped him to eat. Though the bamboo chopsticks and clay bowl were coarse implements, they were all new and specially prepared for him. The dishes were nothing special, just ordinary vegetables, tofu, eggs, and fish, but they were all cooked deliciously. Yang Guo ate 3 bowls of rice in one go and kept on praising her cooking. Though her face was hidden by the mask and covered her expression, her bright eyes showed signs of delight. Yang Guo's injury had recovered a little more by the next day. The young girl had moved a chair next to the end of the bed. She sat there and mended his long gown. She lifted up the gown and said, How can a person like you wear something like this? After she said this, she left the room and returned with a roll of blue-green fabric and started to prepare a gown according to the fitting of his old one. From her voice and figure, she was no older than 17 or 18. But not only was she like an older sister to Yang Guo, she was tender and loving to him like a mother. His mother had passed away a long time ago, but today he experienced the feeling of being that child once again. He was touched and surprised and asked, Sister, why are you treating me so well? I really can't accept it. The young girl replied, What's so difficult about making a gown? You risked your life to save someone. That was a much harder task. The morning of that day passed peacefully. After midday, the girl once again sat at the table and practiced calligraphy. Yang Guo really wanted to see what she was writing, but after pleading a few times, she still said no. She practiced for about 2 hours. She wrote one piece and then thought for a while before she ripped it up and started another piece. It appeared that she couldn't get what she wanted. She wrote a piece and then ripped it up. It seemed like she was writing some sort of martial arts manual. Eventually, she gave a sigh and asked, What do you want to eat? I'll make something for you. Yang Guo had an idea and said, I'm afraid that it might be too time-consuming. The young girl said, What? Tell me. Yang Guo said, I want to eat zong zai, glutinous rice dumplings wrapped in leaves. The young girl was startled and said, What's so hard about wrapping a few zong? I'd like to eat some myself. Do you like sweet or savory ones? Yang Guo said, Whichever is fine. As long as I can eat some, I'll be satisfied. How can I be picky? Indeed, that night the young girl did wrap up a few zong zai for him. The sweet ones were filled with soy beans, the savory filled with ham. They were both delicious. Yang Guo ate and praised her incessantly at the same time. The young girl sighed and said, You really are clever. You've finally guessed who I am. Yang Guo was surprised and thought, I haven't guessed. How have I guessed who you are? But his reply was, How did you know? The young girl replied, Jiangnan, my home, is famous for its zong zai. There were many things for you to pick from, but you had to pick zong zai. Yang Guo recalled the events of years ago in Jexi where he met the Guo couple, the fight with Li Machu, how he became Ouyang Feng's godson, but he could not remember who this girl was. He wanted to eat zong zai for another reason. When he finished eating, he waited for the moment when the young girl was not looking and placed a piece in his palm. When the girl collected up the chopsticks and bowls, he quickly took a piece of fabric that the girl had left behind when she was making the gown for him and attached some zong to one end, and then shot it out towards the pieces of torn paper on the table. When he pulled a piece back and took a look, he couldn't stop himself from being startled. The words that were on the paper were, Since a gentleman has passed my eyes, the clouds are not pleasant. That phrase was from the Shijing. Years ago, Huang Rong had taught him the meaning of this phrase. Since I've seen such a man, how come I am not pleased? He shot out the piece of cloth again for another piece. The same thing was written on it, but the since word was torn in half. Yang Guo's heart ran. He had collected 10 pieces of paper, but the same thing was written on all of them. He carefully thought about the meaning and went off into a daydream. Suddenly, he heard footsteps. The young girl was returning to the room. Yang Guo quickly hid the pieces of paper underneath his blanket. The young girl gathered up the rest of the pieces of paper and burned them outside. Yang Guo thought, "She wrote, 'Since a gentleman has passed my eyes, could that gentleman be me?' I've only spoken a few words with her. What could she see in me that she likes? Anyway, how can someone describe me as a gentleman? But if it isn't me, who else can it be since there's no one else around?" The pale light of the moon shone through the window, covering the floor. Yang Guo called out, "Sister." But the young girl did not reply and slowly left the room. After a while, he heard the sound of a flute coming through the window. Yang Guo had seen her use a jade flute to fight with Li Machu. Her martial arts weren't weak. Her musical skills with the flute were great as well. During his time in the ancient tomb, Xiao Longnu would occasionally play the zither, and he would sit by the side and listen to her explain the meaning of songs. Thus he was coarsely learned in music. He could tell that she was playing a tune of wuxia, the song of Qiao. This song was peaceful and serene. Yang Guo had heard it a few times, but he didn't love it. He heard that she kept on repeating the first 5 phrases. Looking into the distance of the mysterious Qi, the green bamboo aplenty, there's a gentleman, like a clean-cut, polished and carved jade. Whether it's high or low, whether there are sudden drops and rises, the tunes are variations of these 5 phrases, winding and drowning in its meanings. Yang Guo knew that these 5 phrases also came from the Shijing. It praises the elegance of a male, cut and polished elegantly like the smoothness of beautiful jade. Yang Guo listened for a while and couldn't stop himself from quietly reciting, looking into the distance of the mysterious Qi, the green bamboo aplenty. The flute suddenly stopped after these 2 phrases. Yang Guo was startled and lamented his actions. She was playing the flute to comfort herself. By quietly reciting those lines, I showed that I understood what she was thinking. That is a bit too impolite. When the young girl brought breakfast in the next morning, she saw that Yang Guo was wearing the human skin mask. She was taken aback and then laughed, and she said, "Why are you wearing that?" Yang Guo said, "You gave this to me. You don't want to show your true face, so I'm wearing this." The young girl said calmly, "That's fine." After she said this, she placed the breakfast down and left the room. She didn't say anything else to him that day. Yang Guo was feeling uneasy. He was afraid that he had offended her and wanted to say a few apologetic words. She didn't stop in the room for the rest of the day. Later on during the evening, she waited for Yang Guo to finish eating supper before returning to collect the bowls and chopsticks. As she was about to leave, Yang Guo said, "Sister, you play the flute really well. Can you play a tune for me?" The young girl gave a subtle moan and then said, "Fine." She left the room and collected her jade flute. She returned and sat by Yang Guo's bed, playing a tune on the flute. This time she played the song Yingxian Qi, meeting the divine guest. It was a graceful and joyous tune, a song that greets a guest. Yang Guo thought, "So your flute also wears a mask, not willing to show the song that is in your heart." Suddenly, the sound of footsteps could be heard in the midst of the flute's music. Someone was hurrying towards this place. The young girl placed the flute down and went to the door, calling out, "Cousin!" Someone rushed to the house and was panting as they said, "Cousin, that witch has picked up our traces and she's on her way now." "Let's go." Yang Guo was pleased when he heard Lu Wuxuang's voice, but he was alarmed when he heard that witch Li Machu was on the way. He then thought, "So that girl is wifey's cousin." He heard the young girl say, "Someone's injured and is recuperating inside." Lu Wuxuang said, "Who?" The young girl replied, "The person that saved your life." Lu Wuxuang replied, "Showdown. He's in there." She dashed into the room as she said this. The joy and delight on her face could be seen in the moonlight. She called out, "Showdown, Showdown, how come you're here? This time it seems like it's your turn to be the injured one." Yang Guo said, "Wifey." He could only say one word before he thought about the elegant and refined young girl in blue-green standing aside. He stopped joking and took back his words. He asked, "How did Li Machu find you again?" Lu Wuxuang said, "After that battle at the restaurant, you suddenly left and my cousin took me to this place to recuperate. Actually, I recovered from my wound a long time ago. I was feeling bored, so I went to Xianguang for a little while. That day, I bumped into 2 beggars. I eavesdropped on them and heard that there was a heroes gathering at De Xingyuan. I hurried to De Xingyuan to take a look, but by the time I got there, it had finished. I was afraid that my cousin was worrying about me, so I hurried back. Outside a tea shop at the town ahead, I saw that witch's donkey. Her donkey has changed, but the ringing of the golden bell hasn't. As she got to this point, her voice trembled as she continued. At least my time wasn't up yet. If I had bumped into her head-on, I wouldn't have been able to see you too. Yang Guo said, "This girl is your cousin. She saved me, but I still don't know her name." The young girl replied, "I." Lu Wushwang suddenly stretched out her hand and pulled their masks off at the same time and said, "That witch is going to get here soon. Why are you two still mucking around with these masks at a time like this?" A bright light shone in Yang Guo's eyes. The young girl had an oval face that sparkled, her skin glimmered like snow. Though her beauty couldn't match Xiao Longnu's, she was still an extremely beautiful girl. Lu Wushwang said, "She's my cousin Cheng Ying, a disciple of the master of Peach Blossom Island, Master Huang." Yang Guo bowed and greeted her, "Miss Cheng." Cheng Ying returned the greeting and said, "Young hero, Yang." Yang Guo thought, she's of such a young age, yet she's actually a disciple of Island Master Huang. Counting back from Auntie Guo's status, doesn't that mean I'm a generation lower than her? Years ago, when she was captured by Li Machu and almost lost her life by the Scarlet Serpent deity's hand, it was Peach Blossom Island's Island Master Huang Yeashi who rescued her while passing by. After his daughter married, Huang Yeashi roamed Jianghu, making the world his home. He was old and by himself, so it was unavoidable that he would get lonely. When he saw that Cheng Ying was weak and had nowhere else to go, he couldn't stop himself from pitying her. After he cured her poison, he took her with him. Cheng Ying served him carefully and meticulously. This was much better than the naughty, restless, and unruly Huang Rong. Huang Yeashi grew from his pity to love her and took her in as his disciple. Though Cheng Ying's intelligence could not compare to Huang Rong's, she was extremely careful and paid attention to everything. She studied the lesser points, but she still managed to learn a considerable number of skills from Huang Yeashi. This year, her martial arts became able, and she told her master that she was going north to search for her cousin. On the Guangxia road, she bumped into Yang Guo and Lu Wushwang. It was she who gave the warnings along the way, and she who gave news of Lu Wushwang's capture. After the battle with Li Machu in the restaurant with all the other youngsters, she took Lu Wushwang to a secluded place and built a hut to allow her to recuperate. The day before, Lu Wushwang had left by herself and had not returned after a long period of time. Cheng Ying worried about her and went out in search of her. Instead of finding her, she saw Huang Rong using the stone formations to fend off Jinlun Fawang. She had learned the formations from Huang Yeashi. Although she didn't know much, the things that she did know were learned thoroughly. And so, by coincidence, she managed to rescue Yang Guo. Lu Wushwang said, "In a situation like this, why are you two still so formal?" Yang Guo said, "Did Li Machu see you eventually?" Lu Wushwang said, "You really are Na-Vi. If she saw me and you weren't there to rescue me, how would I be able to escape from her?" As soon as I heard the donkey's bell, I hid behind the tea house. I didn't even dare to breath. I heard her ask the manager of the tea house if he had seen two girls. One was a little lame and the other one was an extremely ugly girl. "Cousin, she said you were an ugly girl, but she didn't know that you are the exact opposite, a beautiful girl." Cheng Ying's face went slightly red and said, "Don't talk rubbish, young hero, Yang will laugh." Yang Guo said, "I can't take a title such as young hero Yang. Just call me Yang Guo." Lu Wushwang angrily said, "As soon as you saw my cousin, you're all nice and polite. You even told her your name, yet with me you lied and messed me around." Yang Guo gave a light laugh and said, "You called me Showdown. I listened to your orders and pretended to be a Showdown. Isn't that obedient enough?" Lu Wushwang pouted and said, "I'll deal with you later on." She turned around to Cheng Ying and said, "Cousin, whenever you went into town to buy things, you would wear your mask. The townspeople recognized you. The manager of the tea house could never have dreamed that a courteous and polite Taoist priestess would have ill intentions. So of course he would tell her where we are." The witch thanked him and asked him where she can seek lodgings, and then she took apprentice sister Hong to search. She has always killed people at the first light of day. It looks like we've got 6 hours. Cheng Ying said, "Yes, that day when she attacked cousin's home, it was Yin Mo Mao Chu Fen. I think it's the 4th hour." The three of them talked about how Li Machu killed Lu Wushwang's parents, and then realized that they had met before in Jiaxing when they were kids. The cousins recalled staying in the old kiln that Yang Guo lived in, and then remembered that they have indeed met before. They all felt a close and intimate feeling. Yang Guo said, "That witch's martial arts are extremely high. Even if I wasn't injured, the three of us would not be able to beat her. Let's just leave everything as it is, leave the lamps lit and escape." Cheng Ying nodded and said, We've got 6 hours left. Brother Yang's horse has great speed and stamina. If we leave now, the witch might not be able to catch up. Lu Wuxuang said, Showdown, you're injured. Can you still ride? Yang Guo sighed and said, I can't, but I'll force myself. At least it's better than falling into the hands of that witch. Lu Wuxuang said, We've only got one horse. Cousin, take Showdown and head west. I'll head east and lure her away. Cheng Ying's face went slightly red. She said, No, you go with Brother Yang. I don't have any ties or debts with Li Machu. Even if I do fall into her hands, she might not harm me. If you fall into her hands, you'll suffer. Lu Wuxuang said, She came for me. If she sees me with him, won't his life be lost in vain because of me? The cousins reasoned with each other, trying to push the other into accompanying Yang Guo and escaping. Yang Guo was extremely touched by this. These two girls were filled with loyalty, yet in this danger they were both willing to risk their lives for him. Even if I die at the hands of this witch, my life wouldn't exactly have been lived for no purpose. He then heard Lu Wuxuang ask, Showdown, say something, do you want my cousin to go with you or me? Before Yang Guo replied, Cheng Ying said, Why do you keep on calling him Showdown this, Showdown that? Are you not afraid of making Brother Yang angry at all? Lu Wuxuang stuck out her tongue. She laughed and said, Look at how courteous and considerate you are to him. Brother Sha would definitely want you to go with him. Changing her greeting from Showdown to Brother Sha was her way of showing her sincerity. Cheng Ying's face was distinctly white, and it was very easy to make her blush. So when Lu Wuxuang said this, Cheng Ying's face immediately turned red as a rose. She gave a slight laugh and said, He calls you wifey, doesn't he? How can the wife not go along with him? This time it was Lu Wuxuang's turn to blush. She stretched out her hand and tried to tickle Cheng Ying. Cheng Ying turned around and leapt away. In a short while, the room felt as if a gentle, relaxing breeze was blowing through the room. The three of them didn't appear to be as worried and frightened as they were at the start. Yang Guo thought, If Miss Cheng escapes with me, then Wifey's life would be in danger. If Wifey goes with me, then Miss Cheng would be in extreme danger. He said, I am extremely touched by the way you two treat me. I say that you two should escape and let me handle the witch. My master and she are apprentice sisters. She would still have some respect towards that relationship. Not only that, she's afraid of my master. She wouldn't dare to do anything to me. Before he finished, Lu Wuxuang interrupted. That won't do. That won't do. Yang Guo knew that the two would not abandon the other, so he said clearly, The three of us will escape together. If we do encounter that witch, then we'll fight for our lives. Whether we live or die, let the heavens decide. Lu Wuxuang clapped her hands and said, Fine, let's do that. Cheng Ying said grimly, That witch comes and goes like the wind. If the three of us travel together, she will definitely catch up with us. We're going to fight with her on the way, so why don't we remain here and wait for her to come when she's exhausted? Yang Guo said, That's right. Sister knows how to use formations. She could even trap that monk Jinlun Fawang. The scarlet serpent deity may not be able to break through it. Once he said this, the three's eyes lit up softly. Cheng Ying said, That formation was set up by Mrs. Guo. I just added a few variations to it. I can never set something up like that. We'll do our best and let fate decide. Cousin, come and help me. Yang Guo thought, When Auntie Guo taught me the formation, I could only remember 10 or so different types, and it could only be used to lure the rusty Jinlun Fawang into the formation. It would have no use in blocking that heaven-hating and world-resenting Li Machu. This type of art is extremely complicated. To be well-versed in it requires at least 1 year's worth of work. Miss Cheng is young, so of course the things that she has learned cannot compare with Auntie Guo. She wasn't trying to be modest. But no matter how simple and crude her formation is, it's better than nothing. Under the moonlight, Lu Wuxuang saw something was wrong with her cousin and knew that her cousin wasn't completely confident. She took out a book from her pockets and returned to the hut and handed the book over to Yang Guo. She said, Showdown, this is my master's 5 poison codex. Yang Guo shivered slightly at the sight of the blood-covered book. Lu Wuxuang said, I lied to her about the book falling into the beggar clan's hands. If she catches me, she will definitely search me and discover the book. Take a good look, and once you've memorized it, burn it. She had never talked in a serious manner with Yang Guo before, but she had no interest in joking around in this time of danger. Yang Guo saw her expression was bleak, and just nodded and accepted the book. Lu Wuxuang also took out a handkerchief and quietly said to him, If you're unlucky and fall into the hands of that witch, when she wants to take your life, give this handkerchief to her. Yang Guo saw that one side of the handkerchief looked that it was torn from somewhere. The embroidered red flower on the handkerchief was torn in half. He didn't know what she meant by this and was startled. He did not take it and asked, What is this? Lu Wuxia, I'm asking you to give this to her. Are you going to promise me? Yang Guo nodded and placed it by the side of the pillow. Lu Wuxia picked it up and put it in his pockets and whispered, "Don't let my cousin know." She suddenly smelt the manly scent on him and remembered how he undressed her and helped her fix her broken rib in place on the Guangxia road, and how they slept on the same bed. Her heart stirred and she stared at him in a trance before turning around and leaving the room. Yang Guo saw that her eyes were filled with boundless love. His heart raced. He opened the 5 poison codex and flipped through a few pages and remembered the antidote to the 5 poison palm and the soul-freezing silver needles. He thought, these 2 antidotes are both extremely hard to create, but if I don't die today, these 2 antidotes will eventually have a use later. He heard the hut's door creak as someone pushed open the door. He raised his head and saw Cheng Ying with red cheeks. She came over to the bed and he could see pearls of sweat on her forehead. Her breathing was slightly fast. She said, "Brother Yang, the earth formation that I have set outside is not good enough to hold back the scarlet serpent deity." She then took out a handkerchief from her pockets and offered it to him. She continued, "If she breaks through and enters the house, give this to her." Yang Guo saw that it was only half a handkerchief. The decoration and quality was the same as the one that Lu Wuxia gave him. He was surprised and raised his head. His eyes met hers and he saw eyes that glistened with tears. She was embarrassed and pleased at the same time. He was about to ask further when Cheng Ying suddenly blushed and whispered, "Whatever you do, don't let my cousin know about this." When she finished, she swiftly exited. Yang Guo took out the handkerchief that Lu Wuxia gave him and lifted it up. Indeed, the 2 pieces of handkerchief came from the same one. The handkerchief was old. The white silk was now a pale yellow color, but the embroidered red flowers were still as beautiful as before. He looked at the handkerchiefs and knew that there was something behind this. Why did the 2 of them each give half the handkerchief to me? Why did they want me to give it to Li Machu? Why did they want to keep the fact they gave the handkerchief to me away from each other? Why was it that when they handed the handkerchief over to me, their faces were filled with awkwardness and embarrassment? He sat on the bed, thinking to himself in a trance. He heard the faraway faint calls of a cockerel followed by music from a flute. He knew that Cheng Ying had finished setting up the formation and was now playing the flute to comfort herself. She was playing the song Liu Bo, Flowing Waves. The flute was soft and gentle. There was no sorrow within the music, and instead there was a soothing feeling, like the feeling of being carefree. Yang Guo listened for a little while and quietly followed along with it. Lu Wuxia sat behind the pile of earth and listened to her cousin's flute, and Yang Guo following along to it. Dawn was gradually approaching in the east. She thought, my master will be here very shortly. My life won't be able to pass this hour. I hope that when master sees the handkerchief pieces, she will spare cousin and him, the 2 of them. Lu Wuxia had always been sharp and astute. Her cousin had always given her some degree of leeway ever since they were kids. But in the face of danger, she truly hoped that Yang Guo would be able to avoid harm. She loved him in her heart and secretly wished that he would be able to escape. Even if he married her cousin, she would have no regrets in death. Just as she was thinking about this, she raised her head suddenly and saw a Taoist priestess dressed in apricot yellow standing outside the earth formation. Her right hand held a fly whisk, her gown fluttering in the wind. It was her master Li Machu. Lu Wuxia trembled. She picked up her sword and stood up. Li Machu stood there without moving, just listening with her ears. When she heard the flute and song, she recalled events of years ago when she was playing music along with Lu Zhanyuan. One played a flute, the other a panpipe. This song, Liu Bo, was the song that they used to play. This was 20 years ago. Now the music was of old, yet for her there was no secret exchange of the lover under the moon and wind. When she heard the soft and tender tune of the flute and song, she felt pain and sorrow and eventually couldn't stop herself from crying. Lu Wuxia could not have expected this sorrowful crying by her master. She had always known her to be a ruthless killer. Where did this gentle and tender side come from? She has come here to kill, how come she's crying? But her cries were extremely sorrowful and somber. She couldn't stop her heart from suffering the sadness. Yang Guo and Cheng Ying were startled when they heard the crying of Li Machu, and the song became disorganized. Li Machu had a thought and suddenly started to sing, her voice graceful and mournful. She sang, "O mortals, what is love? That binds beyond life on earth. To all corners as pair we fly, braving summer and winter by and by. Union is bliss, parting is woe. Agony is boundless for a lovelorn soul, sweetheart. Give me word, a trail of clouds drifting forward, and mountains capped with snow, whither shall my lonesome shadow go?" The flute was originally joyous, but Li Machu's song was filled with sorrow, her tone mournful. It was completely different from the tune of Liu Bo. The voice became quieter, but the quieter it got, the higher it got. Cheng Ying was slightly disturbed. She actually began to follow the song from Union is Bliss, and by parting is woe, she could no longer stop herself from following her. She was alarmed and quickly changed the tune. But the music from a flute is peaceful and serene, but her internal energy was shallow. She could not produce a high tune to subdue the song of Li Machu. She stumbled slightly and headed into the hut. She placed the jade flute down and sat aside. She began to play the zither. Yang Guo also started to sing to help. Li Machu's song was becoming more and more mournful. Cheng Ying's strings were producing higher and higher notes. A zhang sound was heard as the first zhang string on the zither suddenly snapped. Cheng Ying was startled and her fingers became slightly disorganized. The zither's second, yu, string snapped. Li Machu's prolonged song was filled with tears. The third, gong string also snapped. Huang Yaoshi taught Cheng Ying the flute and zither. Though she learned from a great master, she was still young. Her abilities with them were not profound. Li Machu had originally wanted to take the chance, when the opponent was disturbed and distracted with the broken strings, to break straight through. But she thought that, although the earth formation outside the hut seemed to be in a mess, yet hidden within were the changes of the 5 elements. She didn't understand this particular art, and she had suffered many times in the ancient tomb. There were some worries in her mind. She suddenly had an idea. She wound around to the right and crashed through the wall in the midst of the music and song. Cheng Ying's earth formation was placed to protect the front of the house, and it slipped her mind that the sides of the house weren't guarded. Li Machu slipped around the house, and with her 2 palms crashed through the earth walls. Lu Wuxia was alarmed. She raised her sword and rushed into the house. Yang Guo was injured and had no strength to stand up and fight. He could only lie there, not moving. Cheng Ying knew that if she fought Li Machu, she would lose her life in vain. She made a decision and forgot about life and death. She started to play the zither, a song of Tao Yao. It was a beautiful tune, flowing with joy. In her heart she was thinking, I have had a life of hardships. Dying here by Brother Yang's side means at least my life hasn't been in vain. She looked towards Yang Guo. Yang Guo gave a subtle smile towards her. Cheng Ying was filled with joy and bliss, she sang. The beauty of the blossom burns brightly, the zither flows the ocean spray, the music carries the fragrance of flowers, the soothing spring breeze. The bitterness on Li Machu's face gradually disappeared. She asked Lu Wuxia, Where's the book? Was it the beggar clan who took it? Yang Guo took out the 5 poison codex and threw it over to her. He said, The beggar clan's Chief Huang and Chief Lu are righteous and virtuous people. What do they want with this evil book? They long ago passed down an order to beggar clan members not to open even 1 page of this book. Li Machu saw that this book was in its original condition. She knew the beggar clan was a righteous clan and had strict regulations. Most probably they did not take a look at her book. Yang Guo also took out the 2 half pieces of handkerchief from his pockets and placed it down on the end of the bed and said, Take these handkerchiefs away. Li Machu's face changed completely. She waved her fly whisk and wrapped it around the handkerchiefs, bringing them towards her. She held them in her hand, startled, her thoughts stirred, and her state of mind unstable. Lu Wuxia and Cheng Ying looked at each other, and both were red-faced. They didn't guess that the other would give a handkerchief half to Yang Guo, who now had brought them out into the open. As one looked at the other, their hearts were filled with many thoughts and their eyes glistened. The air of death that was in the hut had now changed into an air of love. Cheng Ying's song, Tao Yao, was played with even more happiness. Suddenly, Li Machu tore the handkerchief in 4 and said, The past is the past. Why is there a need to return there? Her hands ripped urgently for a while and then flung the pieces into the air. The pieces of the torn handkerchief fell like descending petals. Cheng Ying was startled, and after a zhang sound, another string of the zither snapped. Li Machu angrily shouted, Break another string! In the midst of the mournful song, the 5th zhen string did indeed snap. Li Machu chuckled and said, Now I'm going to make you suffer. You won't be able to beg for your life nor death. Quickly wail for me. The zither had 2 strings remaining. Cheng Ying's abilities with a zither were ordinary, and it was difficult for her to form a tune. Li Machu said, Quickly play mournful notes. There is too much suffering in the world. What joy is there in living? Cheng Ying played 2 notes. Although it didn't form a tune, it was still following the music of the Tao Yao. Li Machu said, Fine, I'll first kill one of you. Will you be mournful then? That severely toned shout caused another string of the zither to snap. She raised her fly whisk, about to strike down on Lu Wuxia's head. Yang Guo smiled and said, "The three of us dying together today is a much happier experience than you will have living alone in the world. Sister Ying, Sister Shuang, come over here." Lu Wuxia and Cheng Ying went over to the bed. Yang Guo's right hand held Lu Wuxia, his left held Cheng Ying. He smiled and said, "The three of us dying together will allow us to chat and joke on the Huangguan path, road to underworld. Isn't that 10 times better than being that evil woman?" Lu Wuxia smiled and said, "Yes, good Showdown, you're right." Cheng Ying gave a warm smile. The two cousins were both enchanted as Yang Guo held onto their hands. Li Machu thought, "He's right, those three dying like this is better than living like me." She pondered, "How can you have things that are to your advantage on this earth? I'll make sure that you're filled with sorrow and grief before you die." So she lightly swung her fly whisk, and with a face resembling bitter frost, she started to quietly sing. She was singing the "O mortals, what is love? That binds beyond life on earth" song. The song and tone was filled with sorrow and grief, like an abandoned woman crying, like a night ghost wailing. The three of them held hands together as they listened. After a while, they couldn't stop themselves from feeling hurt in their hearts. Yang Guo's internal energy was relatively profound and wasn't moved. His face still carried a subtle smile. Lu Wuxia was strong, she would not be easily moved. Cheng Ying, however, could endure no longer, and tears flowed. The longer Li Machu sang, the quieter it became. Eventually, it was as if there was no song. As soon as the three cried, the scarlet serpent deity will wave out her fly whisk and kill them all. Just as soon as the song was becoming extremely sad and depressing, someone from outside the hut suddenly laughed out loud and clapped as they made their way towards the hut. It was a woman's voice. It appeared that the voice was not young, but what she was singing was a and innocent song. "Sway, sway, sway, sway until Granny's bridge falls. Granny calls me my precious. Sweets in one bag, fruit in the other. Once I've finished, I'll take another." The song was filled with joy and happiness, Li Machu's sadness, and the sorrow in her song was disturbed. The song was getting closer and closer. After a while, someone entered the hut from the front door. It was a middle-aged woman with disheveled hair and clothes, her eyes round and wide open. She laughed foolishly, and her hand held a fireplace fork. Li Machu was startled. How did she get past those piles of earth and enter through the main door so easily? If she isn't with them, then she must be versed in art of formations and changes. As she concentrated on this, the power of her song immediately decreased. When Cheng Ying saw this woman, she was delighted and called out, "Senior apprentice sister, that woman wants to hurt me, help me." That disheveled hair woman was Xiao Guo. She was actually a generation lower than Cheng Ying, but she was a lot older. That's the reason why Cheng Ying called her senior apprentice sister. Xiao Guo clapped her hands and laughed. She started to sing some songs at the top of her voice. She would sing songs like "Sparkling Star in the Sky," "Nothing on the Ground, My Oh My," "Precious Pagoda Tip, Surging Up, the Sky It Rips." Sometimes she would remember the wrong lyrics and replace them with whatever she thought of. Li Machu wanted to use the sorrowful and mournful song to subdue her, but how would she know that it wouldn't affect her? Love comes from the heart. But since her heart was full of confusion and disorder, even if the outside influence was stronger, there will be no way to create and stir up these feelings. Instead, Xiao Guo's muddled-up songs disturbed Li Machu's sorrowful tones. It ended her control over Yang Guo and the others. Li Machu was furious and thought, "I need to get rid of this person first." Before the song finished, she waved her fly whisk and attacked her head. Years ago, Huang Yaoshi punished his innocent disciples out of anger, and as a result caused his disciple, Ling Feng, to die at the hands of his enemies. He regretted this, and so took in Ling Feng's daughter Xiao Guo under his care, and decided to teach everything he knew to her. However, when Xiao Guo saw her father being harmed, she suffered a severe shock, and it remained in her mind, no matter how many times Huang Yaoshi tried to make her better. A man cannot turn time back, without mentioning the futility of trying to teach her all the arts and martial arts he knew. Even trying to get her to recognize a few words and learn a few coarse martial arts was something that he couldn't do. But over the last 10 years, under the instruction of a great master, Xiao Guo had learned a set of palm techniques and a fork technique. It's called a set, but really there were only 3 stances of palm and fork techniques. Huang Yaoshi knew she would not remember any sort of variations or extraordinary stances, so he thought deeply, and came up with 3 palm stances and 3 fork stances. Those 6 stances were ordinary and didn't have any variation behind them. The power of these techniques all comes from practice. When normal people practice martial arts, a little practice will lead to only tens of stances being learned. A lot will lead to variations surpassing 1,000. Xiao Gu only practiced the 6 stances, so as time went by, naturally these stances will be refined and precise. Though there are few stances, it was not anything ordinary. As to how she went through the formation, it was because she had lived on Peach Blossom Island for a long time. The formation that Cheng Ying had set up was a coarse and basic skill of Peach Blossom Island. Xiao Gu didn't even need to take a look and just naturally followed her steps forward to the hut. She concentrated and leapt back into the hut and attacked with her fly whisk in midair. Xiao Gu didn't change her stance with the enemies and just thrust forwards again, but because the enemy was in the air, the fork was now aiming for her opponent's abdomen. Li Machu saw the incoming attack was fast and powerful. She turned her fly whisk around and used the handle to block the attack and used its force to dart away. She looked at her stunned, thinking, "Just know, my 3 attacks contain 9 different variations and 12 different follow-ups. A skilled fighter of Wulin would not be able to see through them just like that. This woman just uses 1 fork and neutralized my 63 variations in these stances. This person's martial arts are excellent. I'd better leave." She didn't know that Xiao Gu's fork technique only had 3 stances. If Li Machu fought for a little while longer, she would be able to see through her martial arts and win easily. Xiao Gu had 3 fork stances. Just by using 1 fork stance, she scared away an extremely powerful enemy. The master of Peach Blossom Island should be very proud. Li Machu turned around and was about to leap out of the hut through the hole in the wall when she saw someone sitting down by the hole. The person was in a blue-green gown and had a long beard. It was the person who saved Cheng Ying from her clutches all those years ago, Huang Yaoshi. Island Master Huang. He was sitting down and had placed Cheng Ying's zither on a stool. When Li Machu was in battle, her eyes and ears were extremely alert. How had Huang Yaoshi entered? How had he taken the zither, and when had he sat down on the floor? She failed to notice all those things. If he had ambushed her from behind, wouldn't taking her life be as easy as turning his palm? When Li Machu was exchanging stances with Xiao Gu, she was worried about Cheng Ying and the others joining in to help, so she did not stop her song, keeping their state of mind unbalanced. As she saw Huang Yaoshi sitting there quietly strumming the zither, she trembled and her song stopped. Huang Yaoshi played 1 note on the zither and sang, "O mortals, what is love? That binds beyond life on earth," he sang Li Machu's song. The zither only had the yu string remaining, but he still managed to play the notes of the gong, shang, jiao, zhang, and yu. With the mournful tone of the zither, Huang Yaoshi overwhelmed Li Machu's song. Li Machu was extremely familiar with this song. As soon as Huang Yaoshi added the tune, she was affected 10 times deeper than when Yang Guo and the others were affected by her song. Huang Yaoshi had known long ago about her evil ways. Today he wanted to take the opportunity to get rid of her. Years ago, he had used his jade flute to compete against Ouyang Feng's iron zither and Hong Qi Gong's whistling and fought to a draw. That was many years ago. Because of his age, his vigor wasn't what it used to be, but his internal energy became more and more profound as he practiced. How could Li Machu resist? In just a short, while she felt her mind slipping out of her control. Huang Yaoshi's song and tune would suddenly turn joyous, then anger, resounding and overbearing, then suddenly lowly and humble, many changes in the wink of an eye. He was forcing Li Machu to suddenly feel delight and then sorrow, suddenly anger, then worry. When this song finishes, Li Machu would have been forced to go mad. Just at this time, Xiao Gu turned her head around and suddenly saw Yang Guo under the candlelight. He was an image of his father Yang Kang. The thing that Xiao Gu is most afraid of are ghosts. The images of what had happened when Yang Kang died due to poison were deeply etched into her mind. She would never forget it. When she saw Yang Guo sitting there, she knew that it was Yang Kang's ghost coming back to haunt her. She quickly leapt up and pointed to him, saying, Brother Yang, don't hurt me. It wasn't me who killed you. Go and find someone else." Huang Yaoshi wasn't prepared for her disturbance, and a zheng sound was heard as the final string on the zither snapped. Xiao Gu hid behind him and called out, Ghost! Ghost! Grandpa, it's Brother Yang's ghost." With this pause, Li Machu quickly used her fly whisk and extinguished all the candles in the room and leapt out through the hole in the wall. Huang Yaoshi had yet to take her life, and eventually she managed to escape. He had to uphold his status, and so he could not go and chase after her. Xiao Gu was even more afraid in the dark and called out even louder, "It's an evil ghost, Grandpa, beat that ghost, beat that ghost." Huang Yaoshi kept Xiao Gu in check. Cheng Ying lit the candles and then knelt on the floor and bowed to her master. She stood up and then told him the simple background of Yang Guo and Lu Wuxia. Huang Yaoshi laughed and said, "My martial granddaughter has always been simple like this. She knew your father. You indeed do look a lot like him." Yang Guo bent his waist and bowed to him from the bed and said, "Forgive, Junior, I have an injury and cannot bow properly." Huang Yaoshi's face was very friendly and said, "You didn't give a care about your life and saved my daughter and granddaughter. You really are a good child." Huang Yaoshi had seen Huang Rong and knew what had happened. He heard that Cheng Ying had rescued him, so he took Sha Gu with him and searched for them. Huang Yaoshi took out some effective recuperative medicine and gave it to Yang Guo to take. He then circulated his internal energy and passed it into Yang Guo through his palm to help him recover. Yang Guo felt as if his arms were on fire. His body started to create a force to repel this. Huang Yaoshi felt him tremble and noticed that his veins and kai were circulating. There was a resisting internal energy that was being created, so he increased the strength in his hands. After a while, Yang Guo felt his limbs and bones were at ease and soothed, and gradually he fell into a deep sleep. When Yang Guo woke up the next day, he opened his eyes and saw Huang Yaoshi sitting at the end of the bed. He quickly sat up and greeted him. Huang Yaoshi said, "Do you know what title I go by in Jianghu?" Huang Yaoshi said, "And?" Yang Guo felt that it was inappropriate to say the words Eastern Heretic, but he had a thought, since his nickname is Eastern Heretic, his character will be different to normal people, so he boldly said, "You are the Eastern Heretic." Huang Yaoshi laughed and said, "Correct. I've heard that your martial arts are not bad, your heart is good, but you do things in heretical ways. I also heard that you want to marry your master, is that right?" Yang Guo said, "Correct, senior. No one will allow me to do this, but even if I'll die, I still want to marry her." Those words were like a nail striking metal. Huang Yaoshi stared at him for a while and then suddenly raised his head and laughed towards the sky, shaking the grass on the roof. Yang Guo said angrily, "What's so funny about that? I thought that because you are called Eastern Heretic, you would have some extraordinary opinion, but who would have thought that you are just like the others?" Huang Yaoshi loudly said, "Good, good, good." After he said this, he turned around and left. Yang Guo sat on the bed startled, he thought. My words really offended that senior, but how come he didn't show any signs of anger on his face? He didn't know that as Huang Yaoshi roamed the world, and the one thing he hated most were the present custom and traditions of the world. His actions and words did not match with the normal, and because of this he was given the name Heretic. He had met many people, but in his life he did not have an understanding friend. Though he had a daughter and son-in-law as loved ones, they did not understand him. He didn't know that in his later years he would come upon Yang Guo. The events of the hero's meet had already spread to his ears, and Huang Rong told him about this young man's actions and behavior. After speaking to him a few times, he found that Yang Guo matched his expectations even more. That night, Huang Yaoshi returned to the room and said, "Yang Guo, I heard you expelled yourself from the Quanjin sect and beat up your master. You are rather heretical. Why don't you leave the ancient tomb sect and then enter my tutelage?" Yang Guo was startled and said, "Why?" Huang Yaoshi laughed and said, "First you'll acknowledge that Xiao Longnu is not your master and then marry her, won't that be proper?" Yang Guo said, "That's a good idea. But who set the rule that you can't marry your master? I want her to be my master and my wife." Huang Yaoshi clapped and laughed. He said, "Good. The way you think is a level higher than me." He stretched out his hand to help him recuperate through his palms and said, "I originally wanted you to enter my tutelage so I could let the world know that after senior heretic Huang, there's a young heretic Yang. You don't want to be my disciple. I can't do anything about that." Yang Guo said, "I don't have to be your disciple to spread your heretic name. If you don't mind me being of a young age and have poor martial arts, we could be friends or else we could become brothers." Huang Yaoshi angrily said, "You sure are bold for a little kid. I'm not the old urchin Zhou Batang. How can there be no order between us?" Yang Guo said, "Who's the old urchin Zhou Batang?" Huang Yaoshi then told him a few things about Zhou Batang's character and how he became sworn brothers with Guo Jing. The two of them chatted and hit it off perfectly. There's a saying, "1,000 cups is too little for understanding friends who meet through wine. Half a word is too much for those whose words don't get along." Yang Guo was good with words, and they got along because of the closeness of his character to Huang Yaoshi's. Whenever he spoke, Huang Yaoshi would sigh as someone who understood him. For Huang Yaoshi, it really was like the first meeting of an old friend, a meeting that has come extremely late in life. Though he didn't admit it through his words, in his heart he treated him as a friend of old. That night he told Cheng Ying to prepare another bed for him in the same room, and the two continued their exchange. Days passed, and Yang Guo recovered from his injury. He and Huang Yaoshi were like glue, like paint. It was difficult to separate the two. Huang Yaoshi had originally wanted to take Xiao south, but now he didn't mention one word about leaving. Cheng Ying and Lu Wuxia watched the old and young with amusement. In the day they would drink wine together, and at night they would talk in the candlelight without end. They felt that the old man didn't maintain the status of a senior, and the young man was too unrestrained and fearless. When it came to discussions of knowledge, Yang Guo wasn't anywhere as knowledgeable as Huang Yaoshi. But whatever Huang Yaoshi said, Yang Guo would concentrate on understanding. When he made a comment, he would just add a single word, yet his comment had its fine points. Huang Yaoshi couldn't stop himself from treating him as the closest friend in his life. In these past few days, apart from spending time with Huang Yaoshi talking, he would always think about how Xiao mistakenly recognized him as his father and the words that she said. "It wasn't me who killed you, go and find someone else." He knew that Xiao must know who had killed his father. Other people might not say, but Xiao is mad and crazy and maybe he could get the truth from her. After midday, Yang Guo said, "Xiao, come, I have something to say to you." Xiao felt that he looked too much like Yang Kang and was still afraid. She shook her head and said, "I don't want to play with you." Yang Guo said, "I know circus tricks, are you going to watch?" Xiao shook her head and said, "You're lying, I don't want to watch." She closed her eyes after she said this. Yang Guo suddenly flipped upside down with his legs above his head and called out, "Quickly look." He used the martial arts that Aoyang Feng taught him of walking upside down and leaping forward. Xiao opened her eyes and was delighted as soon as she saw this. She clapped and cheered and followed behind him. Yang Guo kept on leaping forward and arrived at a hidden and covered wood far away from the hut. He turned upright and said, "Let's play hide and seek, you want to, but the loser has to be punished." Xiao has been following Huang Yaoshi for the past few years. Nobody played with her. When she heard Yang Guo say this, she was ecstatic and clapped her hands. Most of the fear she had for him disappeared, and she said, "Yes, yes. Good brother, what is the punishment?" She called his father brother, and she also called him brother. Yang Guo took out a handkerchief and blindfolded her and said, "Come and catch me. If you catch me, then whatever question you ask, I'll have to answer it truthfully. If you can't catch me, then I get to ask you a question. You have to answer it truthfully as well." Xiao replied, "Good, good." Yang Guo called out, "I'm over here, come and catch me." Xiao opened her arms and followed the calls. Yang Guo possessed the lightness kung fu of the ancient tomb sect. Even if Xiao wasn't blindfolded, she would not be able to catch him. After chasing for a while, she crashed into a tree and bruised her forehead as a result. She started to cry out in pain. Yang Guo was afraid that Xiao would not want to play anymore, so he deliberately slowed down and made light noise. Xiao rushed forward and grabbed his back and called out, "I've caught you, I've caught you." Her face was full of delight as she took off her blindfold. Yang Guo said, "Fine, I've lost, ask a question." She stared at him, startled. Her mind was uncertain. She didn't know what to ask. After a long while, she asked, "Good brother, have you eaten yet?" She thought for so long but came up with such a simple question, Yang Guo almost laughed. He didn't make a sound and seriously replied, "I've eaten already." Xiao nodded and didn't say anything else. Yang Guo said, "What else do you want to ask?" Xiao shook her head and said, "I don't want to ask any more, let's play again." Yang Guo said, "Fine, come and catch me." Xiao touched the bruise on her forehead and said, "This time it's your turn to catch me." This time she didn't act crazy. Yang Guo didn't predict this, but since this was what he wanted, he took the handkerchief and blindfolded himself. Though Xiao was mad, her lightness kung fu was pretty good. Yang Guo couldn't see, how could he catch her? He leapt forward a few times, and then secretly he tore an opening in the blindfold and saw her hiding on the right behind a large tree. He deliberately faced the left, pretending to think. He said, "Where are you? Where are you?" He suddenly flipped over and caught her wrist. He quickly put the handkerchief in his pockets with his left hand in case she saw the ripped handkerchief. He laughed and said, "This time it's my turn to ask you a question." Xiao said, "I've eaten already." Yang Guo laughed and said, "I'm not asking about that. This is my question. You know my father, right?" His face was extremely serious as he said this. Xiao said, "Who's your father?" Yang Guo said, "There's a person who looks just like me. Who is that?" Xiao said, "Ah, that's Brother Yang." Yang Guo asked, "You saw that Brother Yang being killed by someone, didn't you?" Xiao said, "Yeah, it was in the middle of the night in a temple. There were lots of crows calling out, 'Wu Ai, Wu Ai, Wu Ai.'" The forest was covered and hidden and was already dark. The calls made the forest seem even more eerie. Yang Guo trembled and asked, "How did brother Yang die?" Xiao Gu said, "Auntie wanted me to say something, but brother Yang didn't allow me to say it. He struck Auntie with a palm and laughed out loud, hoo-ha, hoo-ha, hoo-ha." She used all her efforts in copying Yang Kang's laugh before he died. Her laugh even scared herself, and her face was filled with fear. Yang Guo listened puzzled. He asked, "Who is Auntie?" Xiao Gu said, "Auntie is Auntie." Yang Guo knew that the puzzle to his father's death was about to be solved. He was full of emotions and was about to ask another question when suddenly someone from behind said, "What are you two playing here?" It was Huang Yaoshi's voice. Xiao Gu said, "Good brother is playing hide and seek with me. It was he who wanted me to play, not me wanting him to play. Don't scold me." Huang Yaoshi smiled a little and then looked at Yang Guo. He looked as if he had seen through what Yang Guo was thinking about. Yang Guo's heart raced. He was about to say a few words to cover it up. Suddenly, footsteps could be heard from outside the forest. Cheng Ying was holding Lu Wuxia as they hurried towards them, and she said to Huang Yaoshi, "Master is right, she is still around." She then pointed to the hill in the west. Yang Guo asked, "Who?" Cheng Ying said, "Li Machu." Huang Yaoshi gave a laugh and said, "Let's go over there and take a look." None of them had any fear with him around, so they headed towards that hill in the west. Cheng Ying knew that Yang Guo had questions in his heart and quietly said, "Master said that Li Machu knows that he has the status of a great master. That night he wanted to take her life, but he was unable to at the first attempt. A second attempt on her life would be shameful." Yang Guo understood. Alarmed, he said, "Because of this she could guard this place confidently and wait for the chance to take our lives. If Island Master Huang hadn't seen through this, we would have thought that she had long gone and let our guard down and eventually suffered by her hands." Cheng Ying smiled warmly and nodded. Lu Wuxia interrupted, "You think you are clever than most people, but compared with Island Master Huang, there's a long way to go." Yang Guo laughed and said, "I'm Sha Dan, I'm dumber than most people. I'm Sha Gu's good brother." The five of them soon arrived on the hill. There was a small hut beside a large tree. It was broken and dilapidated. There was a piece of paper nailed onto the door. On it were 4 lines. "The master of Peach Blossom Island. Disciples he has many, 5 against 1. It's the laughing stock of Jianghu." Huang Yaoshi laughed and casually picked up 2 pebbles and placed them in between his middle finger and thumb. After a kai sound, the pebbles shot forward forcefully. A pi sound was heard as the 2 small pebbles from over 10 paces away knocked the doors open. When Yang Guo was on Peach Blossom Island, he heard from Guo Fu that her grandfather had a skill called the Divine Flicking Finger. Today he saw it with his own eyes, and it far exceeded the tales about it. He was in awe. Once the doors opened, they saw Li Machu sitting on a mat on the floor, her hands holding her fly whisk, her eyes closed. She looked collected and was meditating just like a Taoist. She was in the hut by herself. Hong Lingbo was nowhere to be seen. A thought went through Yang Guo's mind, and he understood. She's laughing at Island Master Huang for having many disciples and winning through numbers. That's why she sent Hong Lingbo away to make it even more apparent. She's confident not because she can defend against Island Master Huang, it's because since she's by herself. With Island Master Huang's status, it would not be appropriate to attack her. The memories of her parents' death and the torment she's had through the years stirred in Lu Wuxia. She suddenly drew out her sword and called out, "Cousin, Sha Dan, we don't have the same restraints as Island Master Huang about fighting her. Let's all attack her." Sha Gu rubbed her knuckles and palms and said, "And me."